All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Chopping It Up with PScott. This is take 2 with Mat Zebrowski. I had some interwebs issues earlier, but we're back on the mic, getting ready to get things going again. We talked our Dylan Brooks segment earlier. You can hop back onto the Chop with PScott page or check us out on Spotify later on when we actually upload just the audio version. Right now, we're going to get back into the other portions of the show. We got Aaron Rodgers is calling Travis Kelce Mr. Pfizer. Again, it's such a weird thing. Sports simps not understanding that sacks and interceptions aren't the only way to measure defensive awesomeness, for lack of a better term. Will Bill Belichick actually break Don Shula's record? Is there another person that we should be talking about? And what if Mac Jones and Brock Purdy's stories were flipped? PScott's picks are coming up. I got a 6-game parlay coming up. I had on my 4-gamer last week, plus 1285. This one's plus 688 or 6880. Excuse me. Big winner if you bet $100 on it. But Mat Zebrowski's back here with me. Glad to have you back with us, my guy. So this I don't know what is with Aaron Rodgers. Like, I know that he's a regular staple on the Pat McAfee show. And apparently he's getting paid, from what I saw today, he's getting paid like millions to be on his show, which I could only imagine, because why the hell would you put that much time into a show that you're not really a part of, but you are a part of? You're a staple of that show. He's obviously getting compensated well. But what I thought was weird is his stab at Travis Kelce. For me personally, do you think that this is him kind of saying, I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm kind of a big deal, and I don't appreciate that you and Taylor Swift are taking eyeballs away from me? Or is this just him being like, hey, I'm a ayahuasca dude, and the vaccine is the vaccine? Because like the vaccine, like, dude, we've been going through this entire thing for going on 4 years, and it seems like the only person who's really obsessed with it in the world of sports right now
Aaron Rodgers
is Aaron Rodgers. So what's kind of your take on all of this?
I think he's a product of those hallucinogenic drugs. I
Do you think
like
he's what? You think he's what? I'm sorry.
he's a pro. I think he started to open up his mind and do drugs. Like, I don't know how else to put it, because that's what it is. He's doing hallucinogenics. When he goes into these dark rooms and he takes
With
I
the
don't know.
darkness retreats.
Yeah, like the best way I could put it is, I think we talked about this off air. He reminds me a lot of Kyrie Irving. Great at what they
Yeah.
do in their profession. Like, I think he's better, obviously, than Kyrie Irving is in his career as a football player. But like,
Oh, now
I
that we did not talk about that off air. You think that Aaron Rodgers is better what he does than Kyrie does at what
I
he
think
does?
Aaron Rodgers has more leeway to be on his platform than Kyrie Irving does, and there's a lot of reasons why. But like, for me, I don't understand like his fascination with like the being vaccinated versus not being vaccinated, and calling Travis Kelce like
Travis Kelce,
Mr.
Mr.
Pfizer
Pfizer.
is it's fucking hilarious. Excuse my language. It actually is really funny, but like, you're I don't get it. I don't what like why do you continue to go down this beaten path and subscribe to, like, if no one actually believes what you're saying, then they're idiots. Like, we can't, like, if I disagree with him, like, he's the smartest guy in the room, is what I've understood about Aaron
You
Rodgers
mentioned that
throughout
about
his.
Kyrie as well. They have that persona of, I'm the smartest guy in the room. If you disagree with me, then you're the idiot.
Exactly, and it's against, like, actual research, and it's their opinion, and if you don't agree with their opinion, then you're kind of like, the whole thing about having a debate, 2 athletes who have played football for a
So
long
in
time.
a vacuum, we'll just leave this to athletes at the moment, then, right?
Yeah, like, 2 athletes having a debate about vaccinations. They're not doctors. They're like, it's hilarious to me that, like, he's like, I want to have a conversation with Travis Kelce about being vaccinated. Like, you believe what you believe, he believes what he believes. Neither of you are doctors. And Travis Kelsey, if you follow him on Facebook or Instagram, he seems like a fun-loving guy, right? Like, he's just like a different kind of breed
I
where
mean,
he's
less
just
fun loving since Taylor Swift because she feels like I feel like she would suck the life out of you, like not in the fun way. She just feels like she's not that entertaining. But
better
that's
than Pat Mahomes lady. I don't know, man. That lady scares me.
yeah, yeah.
Brittany Mahomes scares me a
I'm gonna
little
be her
bit.
for Halloween, by the way.
That's fucking funny.
I'm not, but I should be.
But like, Aaron Rodgers is in this realm of like, he's like, I'm the smartest guy in the room, and I know everything about COVID, and you shouldn't have. And whether you get your shots or not, I really don't care. That's a personal choice. But like, for him to sit
Yeah.
here and be like, I believe this, and if you don't believe this, you're an idiot. And it's like, but dude, you're just a football player. Like, why should I? It's just interesting to me. Like, he's trying to keep himself relevant at a time where he's not, because he's not playing. And so like, he keeps grasping at these straws. I don't know if he's messing around or it's just like hyperbole when he's on the show. Like, because McAfee show is just, it's supposed to be fun, and so he could just be saying this just to get clicks, like we talked about on our first segment a little bit ago. Just like, he could just be saying this just to be ironic. You know what I mean? Like, Kyrie used to say the earth is flat. He doesn't believe that. He just ironically says
He
it.
wants to poke the bear. He wants to poke
Yes.
the bear of how dumb is the actual society that I have to occupy. And let me just see. Like I'm just gonna play with it for a minute. And that's kind of when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and in this space, I think that you kind of hit it because that was largely my perspective as well, as that him going to the Jets was it was the talk of the offseason. He was occupying the space of football, and I'm the biggest name once again. I was a two-time MVP. Then I had a down year because by his metrics, you didn't do what I wanted you to do to
Hmm.
make us better. I'm going to leave. And 4 plays into my season, it's completely done. Now, it's not fair to say that he's only going on McAfee because of that, because he would be doing this regardless. So I'm
Yeah,
not
of course.
I'm not trying to do that because I understand what his relationship is with McAfee. But I do think that there is a certain level of he is really trying to push. You don't have to do this. And to some people it's necessary, to some people it's harmful. And to your like, look, I'm vaccinated. I don't care if other people aren't. It just comes down to the fact of what you're doing is, like you said, I'm right. You're an idiot if you don't believe me. But I also don't want to pander so much on the other side of because what you had said is like you're an athlete. I don't want to push down the throat of shut up and dribble to like to double
Yeah,
down and
of
to
course
go
not. Yeah.
forward to that. I don't ever want to say shut up and dribble, shut up and throw, or whatever that is. But you are right when it comes to Aaron Rodgers thinks that he's the smartest guy in the room, but I also kind of admire him because we know that he's smart. It's always just been it's tough because man, I struggle with this one. Not so much in the narrative of the vaccine thing because whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna do. I'm not worried about that. But that has been something where with Aaron Rodgers initially, it was kind of a detriment to his draft stock. He isn't fully engaged. He has other outside things, and he slips in the draft. And then we realize that it's just because he's smart and has other interests. Then he's great, and we all get to see it after he's done, backseat babying to Brett Favre. But once you get older, that starts to wear thin. It feels like, and now people are starting to pick apart at his uh, the things that make him awkward for lack of a better term, and now they want to pick apart those things, and I just don't know what to do with this Aaron Rodgers thing anymore. But I do find it funny that he's just strictly attacking Travis Kelsey and calling him like Mr. Pfizer, where because you and I laughed about this off air as well when we were saying like you want to debate him about what, like, this is science, you can have your own opinions, but why are we making this such a big deal about I have to debate you now. Is it because you're bored?
It it might be, but like, is it not coincidence that Travis Kelce is the hottest topic of the NFL, and that's in relation because of Taylor
Taylor
Swift.
Swift. Yeah.
So this is keeps he could say this, okay, whatever. Aaron said this. He's talked about his vaccines, but now you have Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce is connected to Taylor Swift, so it keeps him in the conversation. But like, what are you keeping yourself in the conversation for? Like, it makes it debating two football players scientifically
Debating
talking
silence.
about COVID is like me and you talking about like neurological science. We don't know shit about it.
Hey, you know
So
what? That's not fair. I've watched so much Big Bang Theory. You don't get to tell me that.
well, you know what? I watched a lot of Law and Order SVU, so inherently I'm a great detective, right? So
Okay, well, okay.
that's kind of
Bishop to Rook 9.
that's
You
kind
got
of
me.
what like he's like, I believe what I believe, and I'm gonna use this. 250 million people have watched that clip about what he thinks about people who don't get the vaccine versus his views. Like, have your opinions, but at the same time, it's like, dude, you're an athlete, and I'm not saying don't have your opinions, but when they go against like science, I guess more than anything, it's like, what do you like? Are you why are you still trying to make yourself relevant in a season where you're not? Like, just do what you
That is
like.
what
Are
it
you
feels like, though. It feels like that's
he
what he's
needs the
trying to do.
attention, right? He needs the attention because it's not the spotlight is not on him. So he's like, well, I have this whole other narrative I can use. And let me call it this other player who's widely popular, but also conveniently he's dating the most known person on the planet.
Well, the thing too is like this was never it always interests me on why beef is the word that we use in whether it's music or sports. Like that is the beef, that's the rift, that's the schism, if you will.
Yeah.
Why Aaron Rodgers with and it's only I can only imagine it's because uh Travis Kelsey is now promoting Pfizer because I don't listen to radio very often. We talked about this off
Oh,
air
yeah.
where I was coming home from work on my commute, and I was like, I'll listen to Thursday Night Football, and I heard Travis Kelce on promoting the vaccine. I thought, well, that's kind of odd because I haven't even really thought about the vaccine in years. But the fact that they're both just kind of like he's endorsing it, and then Aaron Rodgers coming at him feels like a really weird dynamic between the 2, and I don't
It's
know.
strange for just
For
two
both,
foot.
honestly.
Yeah, it is. Like, one's probably getting paid to do it,
Well,
but
they're
I
both
don't.
getting paid, like, they're both getting paid,
Yeah,
like Kelsey's getting paid by Pfizer, and
correct.
Rodgers getting paid by McAfee, so, like, they're
And
both monetarily getting
McAfee is
compensated.
there. He's an entertainment show, so he is. That's good content. Obviously, like, it's great
Oh,
content.
yeah, yeah.
Like, that's why we're here talking about it. It's really good content. So why would you pay for it? Because you're gonna get the clicks. He's gonna pay for himself. But it's 2023, and and he's asking another athlete
I'll
to
debate you.
debate. I'll debate you about science. It's like, dog, you throw a football and he catches it. I'm not
Not from
saying you
the
aren't.
other, but,
I'm not saying
like,
you aren't smart. To go to Cal, even though he went to Chico State, you still got to be pretty smart to get into Cal.
yikes, sounds like
And
there was a little bit of shade thrown, like, there was a
and
little bit of undertone shade, Mr. Zebrowski.
Chico State's not exactly the greatest school. That area that he grew up in is not exactly like doesn't produce the best football players or the smartest people. I
Individuals, apparently.
and and so like you have well, Marshawn Lynch got to Cal, but I think Marshawn Lynch is a
You
genius.
leave Marshawn Lynch out of this. He's a national treasure, and I love him. You
I
will
think he's an
not.
absolute no, I'm not. I think he's absolute genius because he didn't talk much during his career, but you listen to him now, and
He's the best.
he's awesome.
He's the
And
best.
and
I'm so mad that Buffalo got rid of him. If there's two people, you know what? Before we move on, I want to do this. You're a Browns fan.
sadly,
Are there
yes,
are there look? I posted this a couple days ago with that. absolutely atrocious L that the Bills took 6-3 on October 9th in 2009. What are the two Browns fan or the two Browns players that you are most upset about losing? Because even though the Bills have had a pretty large track record of like great players with no Super Bowls, even though they have championships, Marshawn Lynch is up there with me. Do you have off the top of your head a couple Browns guys where you go, I cannot believe that we let this guy go or get traded?
No, there's no. That's how bad the Browns are. Joe Thomas
You have
retired.
nothing.
I was born in 1985, and by the time I rooted for the Browns when I was really young. But think about it, they went away for a few years, and so for me, like the bulk of my Browns history that I remember, is when
Oh, it was
they.
taken from you. The fabric of Browns football was taken from you.
So like I I can't look like Vinny Testaverde. Like I don't know, but like I thought
Yeah,
Thomas
Jimmy Couch.
retired a couple years too early. That's about as close as I can get. But I can't name another Browns player. I was like, man, I we've sucked for so
I'm
we
sure
and I
that
say
you
that
I'm sure that you wish that Josh Gordon played out better.
that's maybe the outlier is Kellen
But,
Winslow
but
Jr.
you guys didn't trade him, like, it was just like he was suspended, like, 19 times in a row, and you couldn't really do anything about it.
Kellen Winslow Jr. had flashes, and
Yikes.
then
That guy, yeah, on the field, great, but good lord, off the field, Jesus
what we were talking about
Christ.
earlier, what you see on the field doesn't always translate
Is
off the field. In
what a creep.
Yeah, it's been a dark 23 years since they came back to the NFL. Um, I can't think like I would have to go to a different sport like basketball. Like losing LeBron as a Cavs fan is one of the toughest things that you have to deal with as a sports fan. But like
Well,
I
he's
can't
not even just like that, like, as somebody who loves Cleveland and Ohio, that has to be, like, that's an economy nut buster
yeah,
as well.
it killed the Cleveland. It was bad and it got better and then it got bad and then now it's better. And that's not just to do with basketball, but like LeBron meant like it's crazy the amount of money he would bring in. But like as far as a Browns player that like I could look back and be like, man, I can't believe we traded him. No, nobody. I thought that we traded the kid from Alabama, Trent Richardson. I'm like, that might have been the best trade we've ever done. And then guess what? We turned those two picks into Brandon effing Whedon with the.
N Whoa! Are you
I could
serious?
go. I could go in that direction where we
The
traded Trent
timeline of
Richardson.
the timeline of sports is so stupid. You turned Trent Richardson into Brandon Whedon?
I think they got
No,
another
I
first round.
refuse to believe that. There's
I
no
believe
way that
I believe that
chronologically, there's no way that thing
I
happened,
believe
dog.
that they traded Trent Richardson to the Colts, and they got that first round pick. They ended up with the first or second pick, and every year when I hear lately, not so much because they've made some good draft picks, but there's a good while there where like do, and
Oh,
then the bell would
Cleveland
ring.
drafted terribly for years, but you're
20
telling me
years.
I don't remember this. You're telling me that they traded Trent Richardson and drafted Brandon Whedon because Brandon Whedon by now has to be at least 46 years old. There's no way in
He was 29 when they drafted him.
right. So he's 40. So I'm right. He's
Yeah,
46.
you're right. But I believe that the picks that they got from him, one of the picks was used to draft a 29-year-old Brandon Whedon out
Oh
of
my
Oklahoma
God.
State.
Well,
Yeah.
Stetson Bennett is 29, right?
I just it's just disappointing sometimes, man. I just
I feel bad even saying that.
like how do you Trent Richardson was a flash in the pan. He had one good year, a lot of
Are you
volume,
talking
which
about
got him
Alabama or are you talking about in the pros? He had one
in the
good
pros.
year.
He had that first
Yeah.
good year, but again, that was a lot of volume on a team that stunk. Like, of course, you're going to rush for 1,000 yards when you touch it 350 times, and then they realize he wasn't what he was, and I'm like, we're about to fleece the Colts, and then it comes in with the second or third pick in the 20 whatever draft, the Cleveland Browns draft Brandon effing Whedon. I lost my shit. I turned the TV off. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
So okay. So now that we're back on the draft, to get off topic for a moment, I want to ask you something. Do you remember the year that Baker Mayfield was drafted number 1 overall?
Yes.
Okay. So I remember vividly. He was not supposed to be the number 1 overall pick.
No.
I woke up draft day and I saw, because I at this point in time I had NFL notifications pushed to my phone. I have turned off all push notifications because I am tired of being bothered 24 hours a day. So I turned them things off. But in the moment, I saw that Baker Mayfield was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick. And my initial reaction was, no, no, I'm not biting this. There is no way in hell. And then he did. What was your God honest truth reaction when you saw Baker Mayfield be selected number 1 to the Cleveland Browns back in, what was it, 2017, 16?
16, 17. I was like, well, this is shitty because this is the same asshole that stabbed the Oklahoma flag in the middle of the Ohio State 50-yard line after they beat him because I'm an
Dude,
Ohio State fan.
you have so many conflicting emotions right now. I can feel it. Let it
And
flow. Let it flow, Matt.
and and I did not. I wanted Sam Darnold, and I know that doesn't sound any better. I would have
In
preferred
the
Sam
moment,
Darnold.
look, in the moment, you're not terrible about it. Because that's the
Like
whole thing. Like, Sam Darnold was supposed to be the dude. You can't fault yourself. This is I always tell fans, stop beating yourself up. There are guys who get paid millions of dollars to do this, and they whiff all the time. So if you missed on Sam Darnold, guess who the guy who actually picked him feels?
the Jets, man, and then it became okay because then we got Denzel Ward, with like a
Mm.
14th pick, and then
Not
we got
even
Nick
fourth
Chubb.
pick,
We got Nick Chubb in the first part of the second round,
2019 or 18. Yeah.
something like that. So like the totality, I'm like, I will accept Baker because we got these other studs who are still on their team. Baker's not. I like Baker Mayfield. He did more for the Browns than I've ever seen any other quarterback do in my lifetime. He got them to the playoffs. He made them relevant. They beat the Steelers in the playoffs. I'm not saying he
That
was great. That dude went out there, hurt or not, shitty system or not, and he balled out. He tried to ball out, but
I
he
was
went
gonna
out
say
there.
that seems like a slight exaggeration, but I get where you're coming from though.
But he had flashes, and so like I'm not upset at the pick when you couple everything else they got out of that first 2 rounds. But when they picked him, I was like, you got to be effing kidding me, dude! Like this,
First overall seemed like a stretch.
it was, and I was
Some
like, I wanted Sam Darnold and Saquon Barkley. That's because we had the first and the third pick, or the first and the third pick, or something like first and the fourth, something like that. And I
Oh,
think
that's
we
right,
traded.
because the fourth pick was Denzel Ward that
Yes,
year.
and I think they
Okay.
swapped it with somebody, and they picked him. It was 13th or 14th or something like that. And then when they got Nick Chubb, and everyone's like, "Who's Nick Chubb?" I'm like, "This is a guy who got hurt, came back, balled out for Georgia.
God,
He's going to be
that
good."
injury to him was so gruesome to watch.
At Georgia.
No, like against Pittsburgh.
Oh, and the
Well,
thing
both
about that,
actually, both of them. Both of
I
them
thought
were.
I thought he tore his. I thought when I saw that, I was like, this kid's never going to play again. And he only, and I say only, he only tore his MCL as opposed to everything else. So he'll play again. But I didn't like the Baker pick. I thought it was a bad pick. But like I said, when you start coupling everything up, and they've drafted great for the most part since they got Miles Garrett.
In the last 5 to 6 years, yeah, they've drafted extremely well. Cleveland has.
And it's rare to see. So I don't get so pissed off when I hear a draft pick because they know what they're doing there. But yeah, I just with Baker. Um, I thought that they kind of did him a disservice. I wish they would have kept him for that 5th year because I think the Freddie Kitchens year that they had when they hired a dude,
Jesus Christ.
I'm sitting there, I'm like, we got momentum, and this is our offensive coordinator now or our head coach. He became the head coach. That's right. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
this is,
Yeah, that's
and I'm like,
that's
this is what Cleveland does. And so, like with Deshaun Watson, people would hit me up like, aren't you happy? I'm like, no, because
no, no, I'm not.
it's not that I don't think he's a good quarterback. It's he's coming to the Browns. it it's
Well,
not going to work out.
he's also had what, 4 or 5 different coaches and 6 or 7 different offensive coordinators is what it feels like. Like, how the hell is he supposed to actually now he's got more I would say collectively in Tampa, he's got more talent now than he did in Tampa. Like, Nick Chubb is obviously his own animal, and that doesn't help him now
He's
because
got a better receiving core.
and
I wouldn't
Mike
say
Evans is
running.
getting older, but, like, collectively, it's better in Tampa than what it was in Cleveland. I would that's the
I
way
don't
I'm
I
I'm
don't
showing.
I don't I don't think so. As far from an offensive standpoint, as far as the receivers he gets to throw to, yes.
Not offensive line, though, not offensive line at all.
Yeah, the line in Tampa's
Not
not
as good
that
as
great.
Cleveland. Not
Yeah,
even
and
close. Yeah.
the defense isn't as good. But if you're talking skill players like at the wide receiver position, he looks good. Like Baker's a starting quarterback in the NFL. It,
Yes,
but is it
I believe that 100%.
but is it for a great team? No, it'll always be for a fringe team that needs a guy to step in that year, and then they'll bring in another piece. Like, but he's Tampa is fool's gold this year because they're 3-1. But we got to look at the 3 teams that they beat, and you could do that with a lot of teams.
You can do it
Um,
with Dallas.
Dallas has played the 3 teams they beat are absolute garbage.
Yeah, the Jets, Giants, Patriots, and they smacked the hell out of those 3, and then they played San Francisco and got mollywopped.
And they got run out the door by Arizona. Like they
Yeah, they
got
got beat
dominated.
by Arizona
They
too.
got
Yeah, exactly.
they got dominated by Arizona because you know what?
But
Arizona
Arizona,
might
that's what I think that Arizona calculatedly did that. They're like, we got to get one signature win. We're gonna
Arizona's
get this one. We're gonna
a
lose
lot
every other game. We're gonna pretend like we're winning, but not this one.
Arizona, if you look, I don't think they haven't been maybe blown out once this year, but they're actually like a well-coached football team that plays hard for the coach. Skill-wise, they're terrible. They're
Oh
not a
my
good team
god,
at
it's
all.
awful.
It's crazy how bad they are, but those guys do play hard for their coach, and so like they might end up 3 wins, but they're going to give team fits throughout the whole year. They're good enough to beat Dallas, you know, eh, but Dallas kills me too because it's like you guys have all these pieces and you can't figure it out, and it blows my
They never
mind.
have been, but I also to me, like, the whole Dallas thing is awkward. Not I don't wanna say awkward, but it does boil down to, like, Dallas has always just been good. They were dominant in the early '90s, and
Yeah,
then they have some down years and they have some up years, but, like, overall, like, they're good. But when you get coined America's team, there is a level of scrutiny that's gonna come to you, which I think is just dumb. Like, you and I are even keel people. This is something where it seems dumb that we wanna coin certain franchises this, but if you're gonna do it and your fan base is doing it, this is what you're gonna collectively get time and time again, and Dallas to me is a good football team. They're
they're
good,
not. Yep.
but they're good, and that's not bad.
It's not good enough for delusional Cowboys fans though, who every year think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. They should have never got rid of Kellen Moore. Their whole thing this year is Mike
Really?
McCarthy.
Okay, so do you think that Kellen Moore is like the
He'll
but
be the head
that
coach.
was only last year, right? They got rid of him last year?
They got rid of him last year, and Mike McCarthy's like, we're going to run the ball more, and
Mike McCarthy is terrible,
it's
by the
like,
way.
dog, how can you run the ball more when you were the fifth highest rushing team in the league last year? Like, you can't run the ball anymore than you did last year, and the offense doesn't look nearly as good. I think Kellen Moore is probably going to be the coach of the Chargers after this year because I don't
Actually, if that's a great point. If the Chargers don't make the playoffs this year, I think you're right.
because Staley has shown
He's
he's
incompetent when it comes to time management.
and he got bailed out by O'Connell in Minnesota, who's just as incompetent as he is, but he couldn't do any time management, so he's going to bail you out. It's like, dude, like the Raiders game at the end of the season a couple years ago. It's like
Oh my god!
someone dealt you
Don't even get
blackjack. You got dealt blackjack and you asked to hit at the dealer's
yeah,
table.
you
You
got
got dealt a
21, you're
20
like, "Hit
hit.
me, dog."
It's like, dude, like, what are you doing? And then going for on fourth against the Vikings at that point in the game, where they were at in the field, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I could do that. I could do a better job than this guy because that's a terrible call to make. And how it ended up working out for them because an even dumber coach couldn't work the time clock. And
It's so bizarre. And like, so I had mentioned this on the last live stream about Mario Cristobal, and I always kind of get a little bit. I hate it when people like us as fans were like, "Well, I could have done that." Well, we don't, and we're never going to. But like you said, I would never do that call. Same thing with Mario Cristobal. Just take the knee. That's pretty easy because losing in a good way by trying to be fancy is worse than
oh, you talk about
just winning the game,
the
period.
the dude from Miami,
Yeah,
right?
Mario Cristobal.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that. And it's like, dog, you could just you don't have to be so cute, my man. Especially like in college football, like you're not ranked in the NFL. You're ranked in college football.
yeah.
You can not do that. I understand like there is a metric of who you beat and how you beat them. But if this game you are a double digit favorite and you messed it up, man. At least walk out with a W so you don't slide in the rankings and maybe stay pat. I don't understand when you said I could do that. Most times when fans say that, I'm like, you're not right. But you're right on that one. And I'm 100% putting my foot in the ground and saying Mario Cristobal is an idiot and just take the knee. And what you were saying is 100% on point as well.
It's like I can make it. You want to pay me 4 mil a year to make stupid decisions? I can do them on the. I like
I make stupid
if you're
decisions and make $80,000 a year. I'll
yeah.
clearly do it for I'll clearly do it for
And the
four
whole thing with
million.
Staley, and it's like and also he's a defensive guy, and you guys can't stop a nosebleed. Like the Chargers, to me, when the Browns went away, I became a Chargers fan. So I do still have an affinity for the Chargers, not as much as I used to because I've
There's
dialed
no
in like
LP, there's no Antonio Gates.
I'm not gonna lie, that's part of it, but I still root for the Chargers, and so like when I see Staley make these mistakes, I'm like, people are like, I can't believe the Chargers are doing that. Like, this is who the Chargers are. The Chargers are gonna charge. The one thing I will say, if you watch a Chargers game every week, you will be entertained. If you're just
Well,
a,
what's
a not,
wild
if you're
too
just
is like it doesn't matter who the ownership is or who the coach is. This and I don't like doing this because I hate saying this is who a team is, even when it's the same thing with college sports. It's like it's a young team. Of course, it's a young team. Every single year, it's a young team.
yep,
Like they're all 21 years or younger. And it's the same thing with the Chargers in a certain aspect when you say they're going to charge. I agree with it, but we shouldn't because it's new coaching, it's new ownership, it's new management. But I swear to God, they are one of the most cursed franchises in sports. It's
it's
crazy.
it's unbelievable how they come up with new and creative ways to lose games.
They do. Like it's Dungeons and Dragons, or it's like those books that you read, and you're like, I didn't take my finger off the page. I didn't do that yet.
Yeah,
Oh wait, yeah, I did because it's still a dumb decision. So I'm gonna take my finger off. And now it's like chess. I didn't take my finger off, but now I did. And here we are.
I
I don't
watched 20 years of Philip Rivers. I watched Doug Flutie. I watched Ryan Leaf,
you leave
and
Doug Flutie at your mouth,
I
good
love
sir.
Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie.
You see the Flutie flakes behind me?
I love Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie, to me, I remember Browns left. We got Doug Flutie. And I say we, it's like
Wait,
my
wait,
family.
wait. The Browns had Doug Flutie. Okay,
No,
that I
no, no,
didn't
no.
know.
The Chargers. And so I used to go
I was
visit
like,
my.
I don't remember that
I
story.
used to go to my family's, and they live in Oceanside, which is in northern San Diego, and that's how
Oh,
I kind of became a Chargers fan after I didn't have the Browns. And every time I would watch Doug Flutie play as a Charger, all that dude did was
oh
run
man.
around and avoid getting hit.
He was like the white Russell Wilson, basically.
And he's like, I can't throw because I got no wide receivers. I'm just gonna run around in circles until someone tackles me. And but Doug Flutie in Buffalo, he was pretty good. And
Yeah,
and then you guys
Wade Phillips was the problem there, though.
replaced him with that one dude. What was his name? He was
Rob Johnson.
supposed to be the next big thing. and then just from there, it's like you guys
It was
never
the
made the playoffs
prototype.
again.
6'4", 230,
Good
great
arm,
hair,
yeah, good
and
arm. Like it, it's the Chargers to me. Like I accept that the Browns suck. It almost is painful when they're even good because then I've got to be like, oh, they're good, and then you have the expectations. I
that's how I am with the Buffalo. Like
It's
with
just
Buffalo,
easier
everyone's
for
like,
them
"Oh,
to
well, they're
suck.
good now." I'm like, don't you talk to me ever again.
Like it's just easier if they suck because I've accepted that for my whole life. That 6 and
Yeah,
10 is a great season for us.
yeah.
When you start stringing along 11 win seasons, 12 win seasons, making a conference championship game, the fan base starts to set these unrealistic
It's
expectations. Like
unrealistic.
it's like no, we're the Bills or we're the Browns. The Bills have a much better recent history. You guys have been to Super Bowls,
Well,
more relevant than the Browns. You guys got
yeah,
Josh Allen. Like
even saying relatively soon, that's still a 30-year window of incompetency over the like. It hasn't been till the last 3 years the Bills have even been what we would consider as football fans good.
and now a
They,
lot of their fans
they
think
were
that they
great, and then doo-doo butter for a bit, and then they were just mediocrity and in purgatory for a long time because they were never bad enough to get a great quarterback or whatever, like a top 3 or
yeah,
4 pick, but they were never good enough to make the playoffs and want to attract other players. So they were constantly living in 6 and 10 and 7 and 9 every single year.
yep, absolutely. It was never 4-11 or it was 3 wins. Buffalo, it was 6, 7, sometimes 8 wins, and you could see pieces of the talent on the field, but they could never fill out a whole roster.
Lee
And so
Evans. Lee Evans was the other guy. Marshawn Lynch and Lee Evans. I'm so bummed that we wasted Lee Evans' career. Eric Molds as well.
love it. Eric Molds was awesome.
He was
He was
so good.
yeah, he was really good. Um, but like it,
Sorry, my ADHD just like
no, it's
took
completely
me out
fine. Mine's just
another
off the
another
cuff
realm.
right now. But as far as like football goes, it's like there's fan bases like okay, so the Braves lost. I'll put this to bed. The Braves lost after winning 100 games, having a record-setting season, and their fans are like, "How many more of these disappointing 100-win seasons can we have?" I'm like, "What?"
You
I'm like,
guys weren't you
You're not
weren't
going
that
to win every year.
also
Enjoy
you
that."
guys weren't a 100 wins team season every single year. Like in the early 90s,
They're
you
like, "We're
guys
so
ran the division and they have they have what, one World Series and they had like 9 division titles or something stupid like that.
during the Smoltz,
Smoke Glavin
Glavin, and Maddox era, they 20 years, one World Series with like 15
once
straight division title once. That's
once.
it. They beat the Cleveland Indians because I remember that because David Justice hit a home run
Oh,
in the bottom of the first of like
I
game
feel bad about
6,
that, my man.
and then
Sorry
he
about
came to the Indians. It's fine. The Indians love
no,
my Indians, but
no, I care about you, and that's not cool.
and then they just won another World Series as recently, but they might not win another one for another 20 years.
Yeah.
But their fans are like, man, they're like, I
Dude,
hate winning 100
you're
games a
not
year.
Boston. Like you're not that region.
No. And I want to be spoiled. And like when LeBron was with the Cavs, everyone's like, you guys are going to win it this year. I'm like, probably not. I go, I just want a decade's worth of good basketball. If a championship happens, awesome. I just want to be competitive. I want the team that I watch 4 nights a week just to be competitive and not stink. And people are like, you don't want a championship? I'm like, that would be great. But when you've watched the Cavs over the last 10 years, they're a dumpster fire. So, like, I would rather have a team that's competitive like the Braves, win 100 games every year, maybe win a World Series once every 15 years, than a team who's absolute dog shit makes the playoff once and then makes a run. You know, like people are super spoiled, and it's like you've never been a fan of a team who stunk. I could tell because you root for a team. You're getting tired of a 100-win team, a team that makes the playoffs every year. How could you get tired of that?
Well, it's just like because that is what it comes down to is fanhood is really down to beginning of the season, it's our year. If we don't win, and once we know that we aren't available for playoff contention, I'm going to raise a stink. And as long as I'm loud, it proves how much of a fan I am. No, it's not. like you said, it's entitlement, it's being spoiled. And like you had said, I would rather be competitive for 10 plus years. For me, the Bills, because it's such a weird dynamic being a Bills fan, because again, I've been a Bills fan since I was 5. I didn't grow into this. I was born in Texas, and I was never supposed to be a Bills fan, but my name is James Kelly. He wears number 12. I knew about him when I was 5. My birthday is May 12th. Everything, the stars just aligned. And I'm okay with, if they never win a Super Bowl, I'm okay with it. But I told people, if they do, I'm switching teams. I'm going to be a Jaguars fan or a Lions fan or a Browns fan, because I've served my purpose on
Yeah.
earth at this point in time. But I never expect them to be good. And now that they are good, yeah, I still know they're running into the Michael Jordan of football with Patrick Mahomes. And Josh Allen is basically, I don't want to be disrespectful to Carmelo Anthony, but that's what he is. Someone who's super talented, makes bad mistakes, try to play hero ball. Josh Allen is Carmelo Anthony. And
If he never wins a title, absolutely.
yeah, and I don't think he will. And some of it is absolutely going to fall on Josh Allen because of the hero ball, because and if there is no Stephon Diggs, who is 30. Look, if they don't, I told people at the beginning of this season, if they don't win a Super Bowl this year, they aren't winning one with Josh Allen, because their wide receiving core is doo-doo butter. Their offensive line is trash. Their secondary is old, besides Kaiir Elam, and he's trash.
And they got to rebuild
Now,
everything around one guy
and Von
with
Miller's
a with a
Von
limited
Miller's
supply of money too, right?
it's
Because you're
well,
paying the quarterback so much.
yeah, and now you're paying Josh Allen this money. Like, if Buffalo doesn't win one this year, in going into this year when they were completely healthy, I said this is their only year, because if they don't, Von Miller's done. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer are going to be done. Tre'Davious White is in a 28, but still great. But then now, and this is obviously in a vacuum of what has happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks,
Yeah,
he's done for the season. On top of Matt Milano, you're done.
that
Like,
kills.
you're completely done, and you haven't drafted well to be able to replace the secondary and offensive line
And that's
and
what teams.
Stephon Diggs, which you can't replace.
Good teams, Philadelphia. What do? They lose a bunch of guys, then they go into the draft and they kill it. So,
And they smash it. And Jalen Carter, I swear to God,
oh,
was the steal of the draft. The steal of the draft was Jalen Carter, hands down.
easily, he's the best. He's going to be the best player in this draft, and he's already showing it. Like if you watch any Eagles games, they're like, "Who's that guy? He's a
He's
rookie."
ridiculous.
Yeah, he's a rookie, but he plays like a guy who's been. He reminds me of Javon Curse when he first came into the NFL with the
They
Titans.
don't play the same position
They don't play
necessarily.
the same positions, and Jalen Carter's not going to sack the guy as much as Javon Curse. But like coming out of college, these dudes were already men, and they just came into the league and like, I'm the best player on your defense now, and we're going to disrupt
Here I
things. Like
am.
Carter's not going to get a lot more as many sacks as Javon Curse based on the position he plays, but he's able to disrupt and get through and make a quarterback think of what they want to do with the ball. He's going to be able to strip sack, might get an interception here and there, but he's disruptive. And when he pops off the field, like when you watch TV and you watch the Eagles game, that guy on the defensive end, like
He's
it's very apparent he's the
it's
best dude on
stupid.
that side of the ball.
Well, I'll tell you what, because I want to get to this Belichick and Shula thing, because I have another little twist and caveat that I want to get to with it. But the other thing that I put in the scroll was, this was presented by Mario in one of the other chats about Nick Bosa, who has, by Pro Football Focus, and some people swear by it, some people take it as gospel, and there's some people who just kind of cast it aside and say, well, whatever Chris Collinsworth says is garbage. But he technically has, Nick Bosa, the highest rated like defensive line grade through PFF, but only has 1.5 sacks. And my argument was, sacks are great, but they aren't the end all be all. It's the same thing for me with interceptions with cornerbacks.
I
It's the
agree.
same
Yeah.
thing with steals with with guards in the NBA. Like
Mhm.
you can get steals because you're cheating, but how many backdoor layups are you giving up? You can rush the quarterback and get a sack, but how many run lanes are you opening up? It's to me, or with corners, like it's like
Mhm.
Antonio Cromartie. Yes, you got great ball skills. You can take it away. Doesn't mean you're taking it the other way for 7, but all too often you're giving up 7. What is your perspective on the PFF grade? Because again, Nick Bosa is like the highest rated one, but only has 1.5 sacks. So people are saying now that he's overrated once he got his contract. I'm like, I don't see it that way. Like Jadeveon Clowney. Yes, he was the number 1 overall pick. He was a better run stopper than just getting sacks, but he's
Yeah.
still a difference maker. And I don't think that people really understand that aspect of it.
Do you mind if I step away for just 1 minute and come back and answer that?
Yeah, not a problem.
All right. I'm gonna just exit real quick. I apologize. We got to take care of something real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. I'll
I
be
got
right
music
back.
for this. I got music for this, dog. You good.
Okay. I'm gonna just exit real quick. I'll be right back.
No problem, man. You got it. All right. So everything's all good in the hood.
Are we?
We are back now.
All right.
I can
Perfect.
win. I can edit that out for the actual audio. It's whatever. So now that we're back, I really want to dive into this Bill Belichick thing real quick because I have a dark horse for potentially overtaking.
Mike Tomlin.
No, and I'm actually really glad that you said that because there's no way in hell he gets that. So to backtrack, so obviously Don Shula is at. Let me go ahead and I got these stats up because I took a screenshot just to make sure that I was well informed. So Don Shula has 347 wins. Bill Belichick has 330, so 17 behind. Yes or no? Because I have other things to get to with this. Yes or no? Does Bill Belichick take over that number one spot? He's 17 wins behind. Do you think he gets there?
Does he do it as a Patriot? No. Does he? It's tough.
Total wins, regardless of if it's New England or not. Do you think yes or no that he?
Unless the Patriots organization is chasing some really weird clout of having like the all-time winningest coach, I can't see. I don't see it because I don't see.
He's already the most winning coach for one franchise because Shula was at the Colts and the Dolphins. So
But of all time, like
of all time, though, yeah,
collectively, I don't think he will get there.
the 17 wins. He's 17 wins away.
Okay, say he gets fired this year, who's going to hire him?
Do you think that happens though?
Not this year. No.
I got so many questions. All right, we got.
It's tough. That's a tough question because there's so many. There's so many different optics to it.
I think that what Bob Kraft needs to do is get rid of the other things that are on Bill Belichick's plate. Because as a coach, I still
I agree. Yeah.
I always go back and forth on this because Bill Belichick without Tom Brady is essentially Dave Wannstedt. Like, I'm not
no,
even joking.
You're not lying. That's funny as hell, but that's
I'm not even joking. He's a sub 500 coach without Tom Brady. It's wild to me. Dave Wannstedt has a higher win percentage than Bill Belichick without Tom Brady. But the reason why I brought all of this up is, it is so funny that you mentioned Mike Tomlin because so Don Shula's 347, Bill Belichick is 330. So 17 wins behind. I think he has the opportunity to do it. And like you said, maybe not with New England, but if they were to relinquish his, like, I don't want to say productivity, but his ability to draft and sign players, like Coach Bill Belichick, I believe in. GM Bill Belichick,
I agree.
Not even close.
Although he hit a home run with that kid in the first round this year, unfortunately, he got hurt.
Oh, Christian
Gonzalez or something like that. Yeah, he's a stud.
He seems like he's
But yeah, I agree. Yeah, Bill Belichick, the coach, is much better than Bill Belichick, the drafter. Some of the moves he's made as a GM, though,
especially on offense.
As a GM, though, some of the guys he's got rid of who never went on to do, like he got rid of J.C. Jackson,
and then traded back for him
because he could fit into the scheme on what they do.
But he also only gave a 6th and 7th round draft pick to get him though.
But like to build a guy up to be that good for the Chargers, to like the Chargers, they're going to actually invest on a free agent like this, pay him $80 million, and he comes in and he's kind of a fraud. Like he had one interception, and that was this year. And he's just
the INTs can sometimes be misleading though.
Well, he cost the Chargers the game as week 1, but we won't talk about that. I got a lot of he did. He had his one interception and he's made a lot of stupid plays. But like he's a really good football coach, like you said, but like as far as drafting goes,
he's been terrible.
Like I
Just
and
awful.
they let what's the kid that's on the Raiders right now that was on there last year. He chose
Which
Juju Smith Jr. over him. I forgot his name, but he has like 3 touchdowns this year for the Raiders. He's pretty good. It's right on the tip of my tongue. But you let that guy go to pay Juju Smith Schuster more money, and like he's just got like you got Juju Smith Schuster who's not very good anymore, and you got rid of this
I
kid.
just feel the thing for me with like Juju is I think that it comes down to everything else when it comes to the NFL is that it's circumstantial. Are you going to be better with Patrick Mahomes? Well, like he had Big Ben initially, so it's like he was towards the end of his career, but he was getting targets. So it's like, oh, Juju's good, and
Yeah,
then you get to go to Kansas City, and you're not the number one guy, but you're still reputable, and then you go to New England, and now it's come on.
Jacoby Myers. He let Jacoby Myers walk and
Oh yeah,
go to Las
the
Vegas
Raiders, yeah.
to and he and they were making the same amount of money comparably, and he chose to sign Juju Schuster Smith. Like his decision making on personnel moves is awful. Drafting,
The only wide receiver position they've ever gotten right was Randy Moss. And that's because like Randy Moss has had the weirdest wide receiver trajectory ever because Minnesota, he was sky high and we all loved him. They went to Oakland when the Raiders got him. And it's like, oh, he's trash. It's no, he's not. It's like what Marcus Tuiasosopo and and Jamarcus Russell. What do you think he's going to do? And then he goes to Tom Brady, and Randy Moss now is bonkers. It's not the fact that you got he can't draft anybody, but he's
no,
been good at he's the one thing that we can say about Bill Belichick again, the GM, he is always willing to get rid of somebody a little bit earlier than holding on too late. And I've always admired him from the business acumen.
I
I
agree.
appreciate that for that because if we're going to treat this like a business, he has to as well. And even though I don't like all the moves that he's made, the principle behind him doing it, I understand.
Yeah,
But the talent evaluation, he has been atrocious.
he tries to be the smartest guy in the room, and it's like, dude, no one was going to draft that guy in the third round. That's a 6th round draft pick. No one in particular. I'm just saying, like he reaches for
Sure.
guys that no one's ever heard of
He
that
reached on
played.
Tom Brady. He should have been undrafted. 6th round is too early for Tom Brady.
Well, that's where I give him some credit because not a lot of teams believed in Tom Brady.
Well,
Do
and
you
that's what I
think?
want to get to in my later point, my last topic. We'll get to that, but I want you to go ahead and finish your point. I'm sorry for
But do
cutting
you
you off.
think Tom? No, no. Do you think Tom Brady would have been Tom Brady anywhere else but New England?
Well, and I think that's a fair question, and I've brought it up to myself multiple times, and I never like to be the definitive yes or no. It's hard because we have the evidence in front of us. We have the story's been told, the movie is done. We know what he is. So the easy thing is to say, well, the only reason why he is because of Bill Belichick.
Mhm.
Because if he's and I made the same argument about Brock Purdy is if you were supposed to be this good, you wouldn't go in the 6th round. You wouldn't be the last pick in the draft. You wouldn't be undrafted. If like you're not smart by doing that, you're picking a position of need and you're doing it where, yeah, whatever, we'll take a flyer. And if it works, it works. And you're not even doing it based on the fact of your intention is to use them. Their intention was not to use Tom Brady. The Niners' intention was not to use Brock Purdy. It was just like, hey, there's a quarterback still left, so we'll go ahead and take him. So it's hard for me to like really give credit to
I
the
I will
Niners.
say I will say this about Brock Purdy. I thought a lot of teams missed out on him. I watched him at Iowa State quite a bit. Probably should have been drafted in the 4th round, which is still late.
But obviously better than the last pick, period.
Yeah, I just. But if you were to sit here and tell me 2 years ago that Brock Purdy would be starting over Trey Lance. Everyone would be like, no, because Trey Lance got drafted number 3, or they moved up for him.
The Niners gave up so much to go get him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um,
No, to bolster your point.
and for I think a lot of these NFL scouts, and again, it's not my job. I will never be as good as some of these guys. I don't know. I don't know as much football as a lot of these guys, but like I think a lot of these scouts get stuck with the intangibles, his arm strength, his 40 time.
Well,
Not
those are
what's up here.
but see, like those are the tangible things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the tangible things people want to look at, like scouts are like, well, he's 6'5" as opposed to the 6'1" guy, or he runs a 4'3" as opposed to a 4'5". Like those are tangible. The intangibles are things that we can't like measure.
Brock
And
Purdy made Iowa State relevant in
well,
the Big 12.
and this was one of the things where I saw, which makes a lot of sense, and I've always thought this, is that when you go to these big programs, and now NIL has to me personally, has leveled this a little bit.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, if you're a quarterback going to the Alabamas, Ohio States, the Georgias, if you're going USC's, all you're playing with is 5-star recruits all the way across the board, and they're masking your deficiencies.
Justin
But
Fields.
Justin Fields is you can lump him in there as well. But for me, like whenever you have these Ben Roethlisberger, Josh Allen's, I don't even consider Cal to be like a huge school.
It's not.
It's so when you go to these other programs that have less talent, Brock Purdy right there. He had to throw guys open. He had to use the anticipation, whereas Justin Fields is playing with 4 and 5-star recruits everywhere. And it makes it look so easy.
And
So
that and that's where the scouts get lost, is like it's like, yeah, of course, like Justin Fields, super talented kid, right? I don't believe that like he's as bad as he's been in Chicago just because he's not putting in the work. I think it's just
I
a
don't think so
Bears.
either.
I think he's a really good quarterback, but he's also been playing with guys that are really, really, really talented on the
Yeah.
wide receiver position. Like you're talking, Ohio State's training out Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the best out of guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, like dudes who are excellent wide receivers.
Legitimate number 1-ish wide receivers in the
Guys
NFL.
like I brought this up the last time we were on with Zeb. Could Marvin Harrison Jr. be the first pick in the draft, depending on what your quarterback position is?
Oh,
If you
yeah.
have
It really, you're right. It depending on who, because like Chicago at this point in time, I may have this incorrect, but if I remember correctly, I feel like
they had the first
Chicago
and second
currently
pick.
had the first and second pick, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the way that it shapes out, oh, you know what? Let's do this before we get back into the Belichick, because dude, I love this platform so much where we can just talk goofy stuff, because like I get on so many different tangents and I don't care.
I apologize.
Dude, you are not the only person who does it. It's a me problem as well. Way more than you. So before we get back onto the Belichick thing, as far as the will he ever surpass Shula? If you're the Bears, hypothetically, let's just say you do occupy the number 1 and 2 overall picks. Do you take Caleb Williams at 1 and trade Justin Fields, or do you take Marvin Harrison 1 and leave Caleb Williams on the board, and then it's an arms race? Because that's what I would do.
I would do that as well.
If it played out that way.
If they're the 1 and 2 pick, and those are the 2 best players, and you got Justin Fields, and say like Fields has been playing better, so say somehow the Bears win 7 games, maybe sneak into the playoffs with 8, because the NFC is not really good, but he's looked good the last couple weeks. I take Marvin Harrison Jr. because now you got a bona fide number 1 star compared next to
him and
DJ
Moore.
Moore. Unreal.
That
Unreal.
dude gets so much slander just because he's played in Carolina and Chicago. That dude is so good, it's stupid.
He's a fantastic football player, and then you had the chance, like, okay, we got the number 2 pick, guys. Who wants who wants this? Give me
Well,
everything.
I made this suggestion when Chicago had the first overall pick before they traded to Carolina last year was whoever you think is the best quarterback, I would pick them because then you take all the guessing out
Out
of
of it.
the out,
Yeah.
out of the equation. And now people are going, oh, he's actually off the board. And now it's really an arms race.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done. But what do I know? I'm just some white dude in Alaska who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
It's interesting that Chicago has those 2 picks because, again, I'm not it's not because I'm an Ohio State fan. I don't translate my love for Ohio State, and then when the players get drafted, if a guy sucks, he sucks. I
Yeah, those
just
things happen.
I just don't think Justin Fields has been given the opportunity to be Justin Fields in a really vanilla offense with Matt Uberis, who's supposed to be an offensive guy, but he was hired from Tennessee on a team that
Well,
only averaged like
all you did was give it to Derrick Henry.
yeah, and your offense wasn't all that great without it. Like if I had Derrick Henry, like if I have Nick Chubb, like I'm just gonna give you the ball 25 times with Kareem Hunt over here, but you're not
Yeah.
really showing me any flashes of what you can do with the wide receivers. But you put Yeah, I just if you can get Marvin Harrison Jr., like even his daddy says, like this kid's better than me. His like when
Well,
you're
see, that's okay. So before that's the one thing I want to interject in real quick is because when it comes to parents and when it comes to coaches, it's always he's better than me. The dad's supposed to say that. The coach,
I think he believes it though.
no,
I'm
I'm not saying that he's wrong, but I'm saying like, as a general rule, when
Yeah,
when we hear parents of professional athletes like, well, he's better than me, and we're going because Michael Jordan even said about Marcus, and we're like, no, he's not. Get the hell out of here! Like you can stop all all that bullshit right now. Marcus Jordan is not Michael Jordan, and we can just stop it. And I think it kind of comes to like Marvin Harrison Jr. He might be better than Marvin Harrison, maybe. But what else is he going to say? It's the same thing like when a coach says he's the best player that I have, or when the player says I'm the best DB, I'm the best wide receiver.
fair enough.
No, you're not. But what else are you supposed to say?
It's like a coach who gets vilified in the media for boasting up his team about how good they are, and then they lose, and you're like, you should be a little bit more humble. And it's like, well, what do you want me to say about my team? We're
That's
mediocre.
that's exactly right.
We want
And
me to tell my
then,
kids in the media we're mediocre? No, no. My job is to coach these kids. So I get what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense.
and 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 look, and Marvin Harrison Jr. might actually be better than Marvin Harrison when it's all said and done. There's the potential for it, but it's just for me, it's just the coach speak about those types of things is like, yeah, but take away the
The intangibles, I guess, is where people see that he's better than his dad. And of course his dad's gonna say he's better than me. I, but his dad was really, 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 really good.
good luck. He's arguably in most people's eyes a top 5 to 7 wide receiver of all time. So
Yeah.
good luck measuring up to that.
And if people think his son's gonna be that good and people co-sign on, like if I'm the Bears, I'm like, I gotta get this kid weapons. If they're gonna keep Justin Fields. And then you can if
Yeah.
you have the second pick, you just dangle it in front of people.
Yeah.
Hey, I
What are
got
we gonna
Caleb
do?
Williams right here.
Well,
Come
see,
on, Minnesota.
and that's why Chicago is in such if this that's the whole thing. This is all circumstantial. If they get the number 1 and 2 overall pick, they get to dictate because there are so many people who don't believe in Justin Fields where they would say, well, they're absolutely going to get Caleb Williams. And there are so many people also on the other aspect who say, well, they think he's good, but they don't have enough around him. They might go Marvin Harrison. Having both 1 and 2 is so like the leverage that Chicago has is
Yeah.
ridiculous. The problem is, do you trust them to make the correct decision
No,
in its entirety, which I don't.
I don't
You
either.
might get one right, but you are absolutely going to the entire transaction is what it feels like for me.
I feel the same way. bad franchises continue to make bad decisions, and until I can see a good quarterback, like let's face it, like Chicago, they've never had a 4,000-yard passer
Ever,
ever.
ever, ever.
How is that? How is that possible? They had Jay Cutler.
Jay
I'm like he would
and
just.
Brandon Marshall. What the?
It makes no sense that in 2023 the Bears have no passers that have
So
thrown for
can I ask
4,000
you,
yards.
can I ask you a question? We need to move on to the next topic,
Yeah.
but do you think it's just Chicago fans just being Chicago and they're saying this is we don't throw the ball through the air, so we want a quarterback, but we don't want to throw for 5,000 yards? Like what
Bullshit.
the hell? Like what the hell is the actual thought process with Bears fans? Because like you said, it doesn't matter who you have. You haven't had a 4,000-yard passer once ever. So you're just like you're not willing to open up your arms to the forward passing game at all.
It blows my mind. It's like you guys still believe in the power run game, or
Yeah, but
it's like
feel
three
here,
clouds and some
feel
dust.
here. You're not
It
the
makes
Packers
it makes
though.
it makes no. And with Brandon Marshall and then Jay Cutler, it's like they didn't get over 4,000 yards, huh? And
How?
he probably had some other stuff. Devin Hester was on that team. Not that he was
Well, I
a
don't
wide
consider Devin
receiver,
Hester.
but
I
but
don't consider. Yeah,
he played. He was probably their third wide receiver on those teams. But they
yeah,
had
he's
talent.
not good there.
But they had talent, and it's like just by happenstance, you can't get 4,000 yards
Well, the whole thing is like the whole thing has been it's a passing league, and
when
when
your
you
your best
so
quarterback's Jim McMahon.
that's that's debatable, but the only reason why he gets
Because he
that
won the Super Bowl.
yeah, he gets a ring and he's like,
Okay,
oh, he's
outside of him, who would be the best quarterback? Kyle Orton.
dude. What's so weird is I was
I,
gonna say Kyle Orton. I would say like Jay Cutler, Kyle Orton. I would put Kyle Orton just because he didn't have as many picks.
I think
But
Kyle Orton is underrated as far as
me too. When
like
when the Bills signed Kyle Orton back in the day, I was. It's gonna sound so stupid to say. I was so geeked up when the Bills got Kyle Orton because I was like, they got a professional, they got an adult, and they got a guy who can actually play quarterback. I remember when the Bills drafted EJ Manuel because they had a top 4 or 5 pick that year, and they
EJ.
and they traded down, and I was like, oh my god, the Bills are finally doing something smart. They're not going to draft a quarterback; they're going to draft players. Nope, they went from like the number 5 pick to 13, something stupid, and they still went and got EJ Manuel. You dumb dumbs. I was so
Too many
mad.
teams fall in love with quarterbacks who
They all do.
it's like you're falling in love
It's
with the guy.
infuriating.
You're making yourself fall in love with him. Take the best player on the board.
Well,
It's okay.
it's not even just that. It's just like it's fans. Poor management does this, and this is why I give Seattle a lot of credit because Seattle signed Matt Flynn to a bonkers contract, and they could have started him, but they're like,
And they're
no,
like,
Russell Wilson's the better one, even though he's a rookie.
yeah,
Yes, it makes if you hadn't signed Matt Flynn financially, it makes more sense to start the rookie because of his salary. But the thing is, like, you signed Matt Flynn to at the time a really lucrative contract and you still started this guy because you didn't believe in the guy that you signed. But most teams aren't willing to do that. They're too proud with their narcissism and just, well, this is my decision, and he's a young person, and I can just go ahead and fart around for the next 4 or 5 years, and it's okay because he doesn't have any experience. And the fan bases eat it up because they're stupid as well. I'm just going to
I
throw it out.
if I'm on the sixth pick and two quarterbacks are off the board and I need offensive line help, why the hell would I pick a quarterback? Who's the third best quarterback supposedly on the board when I can get the first best offensive tackle to
Now,
build my team from inside out,
now
right?
here
Inside. Go ahead.
here's the only reason why I would say take a quarterback only if your intention is to trade him. Because the way that I look at things is when you look at the way that NFL positions are evaluated, quarterback is number 1, largely left tackles number 2 because most quarterbacks are right-handed, so you want the
Yeah,
left hand.
of course.
So I would say quarterback number 1, left tackle number 2, cornerback number 3. Like that's kind of, and then I would say wide receiver number 4. Like that seems to be the hierarchy of what you want to get first. So if I could get a quarterback, I don't mind taking him when I already have one to use it as trade bait. But if your intention is to use him, that's stupid. But if your intention solely is I want to have it because now I have the commodity that somebody else wants, I'm totally good with it. But that circumstance doesn't come around very often though.
But when you draft that quarterback, are you drafting a guy that you're going to try to fit in your system, or are you going to cater that system around his skill set? I hate the
That's also
Ravens.
fair.
I'm not a big Ravens fan, but I will tell you this: they catered their offense to what Lamar Jackson does. And have they won a Super Bowl? No, but they've been successful a lot, and it's happening less and less. But like a lot of these teams will draft a quarterback, and they want a guy who has this skill set to fit within a skill set that they've never done. And it kind of blows my mind. And so like at that point, like for me, I would just rather, if I believed in the quarterback and I could put him in a system that I thought would help us win games, I will do it. But like if sometimes I think they fall in love with a quarterback because their fan base, like you said, or their front office is like, we need a quarterback because we don't have one. But you don't have a lot of things. You don't have a lot of other stuff too. So why not just pick the best player off the board for a position of need, and then make your team better? And then at a later point, maybe in the draft, second round or next year, because you're not going to be a good team, then you pick your quarterback that fits your system that you're willing to put them in. A lot of NFL offenses have done a lot of a better job of taking a quarterback and building to their skill set, because 10 years ago you would pick a guy and it's like, no, he's not a pocket passer, but we're gonna make him a pocket passer. Like, like that doesn't
It's
happen as
basically
much anymore. But
RG3. Like RG3 was like the last like real form of this isn't what you are, but we're gonna try to make you this.
you're gonna sit you in the pocket as a rookie, not use your legs. You can't check down receivers because you're not there yet, but we're going to limit what you do. And he was really good, but it's just like it just doesn't make sense sometimes when teams will overvalue, like Will Levis.
Dude, I was so
Why?
furious. I was well, look, for me personally, I understand why Tennessee got a quarterback because Ryan Tannehill's old. Also,
Yeah.
he's also not good.
No.
On top of the fact that Malik Willis, it seems like they've lost a lot of faith in him really quickly. But Will Levis to me is just not the dude. And
That's it.
it's mostly because of especially if you're trying to do this from the perspective of
They did it with Jake Locker too. They're the
yeah,
same. They're the same dudes.
it's the same. Well, they are and they aren't mostly because the way that I see Will Levis is he reminds me of a very uh non-talented Caucasian Giannis Antetokounmpo with when it comes strictly to the way that he interacts with adversity, especially at a young age. Because I
Oh,
remember, if you remember, there was a clip where the Bucks were playing the Bulls, and Giannis got fouled, or he thought so, and instead of just playing, he went and clipped and just railroaded Mike Dunleavy Jr. And I was like, this guy has a complex. Same thing with Will Levis. That's the way that I interpret him, like from like upstairs.
hmm.
At least. I also don't think he's that talented, but I understand why Tennessee took a quarterback in the second round because they're not good at that position.
No, but you could have got you could have got where they picked him. They could have got a first round talent at another position of need. And is your team going to be any better because you're not even starting the kid? So like Tennessee could have waited and they can come out the quarterback class coming up this year, and they always say it's going to be better next year anyways.
Oh
They,
yeah, exactly.
but they could go out and maybe find a better prospect. I also wish that a lot of teams would draft a guy and stick with him for more than a couple years, because I think now we expect a kid to go in the first year and look really, really good and then be the starter
That's
for 20
impressive.
years. And it's not the Ben Roethlisbergers from Miami of Ohio they're not there all the time. You're not
But
going
that
to find
team
a
was stacked. He also wasn't like the number one overall pick. That's the whole thing too, though. Like when when you have the number one overall pick or a top 5 pick, Carolina's not going to be good for a while.
no.
Houston's not going to be good for a while. Like Indianapolis
CJ
isn't going to be
CJ
good for a
Stroud
while.
though looks
He looks good, but we also get in this mold of you look good right now. You must be great. But once the NFL gets tape on you, CJ Stroud
exactly.
looks good right now. So next year, maybe he doesn't. I'm not going to be so hyperbolic and say that he's not going to be great next year, but there's the chance, and the data suggests that he wouldn't be as good next year unless they really build. And I like D'Amico Ryans. I'm not usually a huge proponent of coordinators going to head coaches and saying this guy is going to be good at this spot.
Yeah.
But D'Amico Ryans, to me, in this particular scenario, seems to have a pretty good stranglehold on what Houston needs to do and what they are.
I like D'Amico Ryans as the head coach. I think he's Lovey Smith last year, he had those guys playing really, really hard. And I kind of like what he did is you knew you were going to get fired, so you made sure that your team didn't get the first pick.
Such a
But they went
gangster,
petty,
such a
petty stuff. I
gangster
loved
move.
it. But I think they made I think look, not every quarterback in every draft is going to be good. I think Bryce Young has a chance. But as far as I just look at what CJ Stroud, accurate, big, sits in the pocket, makes throws that
If they can, if they can somehow, and everything has to come down to like monetary value, right? Like, what are we actually giving up? If they were to somehow, actually, if I remember right, so Chicago has a 1 and 2 pick, but they have the 2 pick because of Houston, right?
correct.
Okay, so that wouldn't work anyways, which sucks because man, if they got Marvin Harrison Jr. with there, things could get.
But would it not surprise you if Chicago didn't even touch Marvin Harrison Jr. and they picked Caleb Williams and then like an offensive lineman 1 and 2, and all of a sudden there's
It's
Marvin
really
Harrison,
it's really hard to dis not discredit, but it would be really difficult to not think that Chicago wouldn't do that.
and all of a sudden that third pick has to pick a quarterback. Maybe
And
Houston
you're
only
like,
wins
what
five
the hell are we
games.
doing?
Maybe Houston only wins 5 games. Now they're the fifth pick. You're like, we just got Marvin Harrison Jr. landed right in our lap because he's throwing to guys like Tony Dell and Nico Collins, who's really good.
Yeah,
But like
Nico's good.
I love Nico. He's a great look. He might not be a number one, but he's a certified number two on a really good team. Um, like it's so weird in the NFL. Like you could be dog shit this year, and then next year you're like, oh, they got some good players. They got talent. They're young, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to be good. And like I'm not a I love CJ Stroud. I actually thought Justin Fields was a better quarterback at Ohio State, but CJ Stroud will sit in the he's a traditional pocket passer, but he's athletic. So he can run if he needs to. But the way he sits in the pocket and he's unfazed from what I've seen because I live here, so I in Texas, so I get to watch more Texans games than I would like because it's on locally. It's either them or the Cowboys, and I choose Houston all the time. But like you can see, like this kid has the ability to be really, really good, but it's up to the organization as a whole to now put the pieces around him to make it better. And now the NFL, it's weird. It's like you're not drafting a quarterback for 10 years or 20 years. You're drafting a quarterback early in the draft that you hope is good within the first 5 years before you have to pay him. and you're going to try to surround him with as much talent as possible. And if you don't, you're kind of fucked because now you got to pay your quarterback $250 million, and then you don't have the money to support the quarterback the way you used to. So it's weird how the NFL has turned into where Sam Bradford would come in the NFL is like, here's guaranteed 250 million.
Dude, that
Here's
was
a
a
bunch.
wild time.
You've done nothing in the NFL, but here's 195 million guaranteed. Good luck. But now teams have the option of like, we got this kid 4 or 5 years. Let's let's surround him with running backs, wide receivers, a defense. If we can't win a Super Bowl and he's really good, now we got to spend all this money on a quarterback, and we're not going to have money to pay anybody else. So it's weird how the NFL has kind of reversed how the way they used to do things, and so you really got to be careful about who you draft early on to make sure that they're the guy, even though there's like the financial consequences aren't there. If you don't draft, like if Bryce Young's not good, that sets Carolina back 10 years. Not
Well, no,
monetarily, just
I don't
talent
believe that
wise.
anymore. It used to. It used to, but I don't believe that anymore.
Maybe 5 years, I guess, it's you can come
I
off of
would I
him.
would say I would say 3 because like one, you obviously give them like the 3-year window. You're supposed to. Like
That's the window I give every quarterback. I don't judge you until after your third year, unless you're
right.
atrocious.
Right. And that's the thing is that we collectively try to give a 3-year window, but like we saw Daniel Jones is not good and that guy's making $40 million a year.
Tua
There are some
Tagovailoa, people want to give up on him after his first year, and
and
I
then
know
you
he's had
and
and
that's the
here
whole thing is like it's not a perfect complete science, but there is also the fact of you need to know what you have. And what you have is what the Giants did is what poor organizations do. We've been
I
bad and we've been dog for a long time, but we made the playoffs. So we have to pay our quarterback. No, you
no,
don't.
you don't have to.
You don't have to. And you did. And now you're terrible again because
You
you
don't think
snuck into the playoffs.
if you I don't know go get a Gardner Minshew for 10 million a year on 2 years that
Dude,
he can't.
Tyrod Taylor, I want to get into my PScott's picks later. And the reason why is because the Buffalo Bills when I locked it in, the Buffalo Bills were a 14.5 point favorite against the Giants. I took the Giants plus 14.5. I don't think they'll win, but Tyrod Taylor is one of the most underrated quarterbacks I've ever seen. He throws a great ball. He's smart. He's elusive. And if he wasn't getting his lungs punctured when he was in the
Chargers.
Chargers 3 years ago, he drug with a terrible offense. Do
The
you
Bills.
remember this offensive
Yes.
line? Just that offense. It was Kelvin Benjamin, a broken Charles Clay, and an
A
Ola
fat,
and they
an out of shape Kelvin Benjamin, by the way.
still made the playoffs because Tyrod Taylor was like, this is what you're giving me. I will make it work. The Giants probably will not win on Sunday night, but they are absolutely not losing by more than 14. I guarantee you that.
Because Tyrod Taylor doesn't make dumbass mistakes.
Yeah. And guess who does?
Daniel Jones. He
Yeah.
doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, but he gets scared in the pocket.
He puts it on the turf a
Yeah.
lot.
He'll fumble the ball, and then like as soon as his first receiver's not there, he's like, what's going? And he doesn't even have a good receiver. Like, who is he throwing to?
But that's why people are saying that. Well, it's not Daniel Jones's fault.
It is.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Is like, yes, it is.
By now, he's in his 5th year. If he can't
You should
read
be good.
if he can't read a basic progression and go from 1, 2 to 3, and again, we're not quarterbacks.
At least
But
1 to 2.
But after your first one, it's like your intention is to run, and I get it, you're fast. But like even Lamar Jackson can read 1, 2, 3. He's
And
people.
go, nope, got to take off, or I
Yeah,
can go to read 4. But
Daniel Jones is like, he's like, no, I got to run, and 9
he's
times out of 10, it's you're gonna put the ball on the ground or you're gonna get sacked or
he's
throw an
he's one of
interception.
those dudes where I've seen so much the way that we interpret how we analyze quarterbacks from the fan perspective has always been really interesting to me because Daniel Jones, the first 3 years was trash. Same thing with Josh Allen, trash. And then he got Stephon Diggs. But then in the
I
fourth
wouldn't say
year,
Josh Allen was trash. His first year as a rookie, he
God, they
was
had nothing.
nothing.
They
Second
had
year, you
nothing.
saw the improvement. The third
But I
year, just
but I've also said it's not his fault.
no.
It's not his fault that he got drafted in the top 10 because he never should have been drafted in the top 10 to begin with. Daniel Jones.
I'm just glad the Browns didn't draft him. I wouldn't
They almost they almost
because they
traded.
almost did.
I
Him
bet
and
you they
Mitch,
want they wanted to trade for him and give him $250
him and
million.
Mitch Trubisky were at the top of the Browns draft list, and I was like,
Jesus. I've said this before, I'll say it again, and I mean it wholeheartedly. There is not one quarterback who has done nothing and done more for their career than Mitch Trubisky in the last 2.5 years.
I like Mitch Trubisky. I thought he
I
got
don't I don't love him, but I'm just saying like he went from Chicago where he was a pariah and then goes to Buffalo and then gets rehabilitated because he's the backup and
yeah.
doesn't do anything. Then he gets to go to Pittsburgh. Mitch Trubisky is the person who has done the very least and resurrected their career the most, more than anybody that I can ever think of in the past 5 years or so in the NFL.
He's not a great quarterback, but like, it-
Dude, there was a year. I want to give you a really awesome stat. Do you remember the year that he went to the Pro Bowl?
yes, that was
He went
like
to the Pro Bowl in
his.
2018, I think.
Yeah,
That was his second year. He had 18 touchdowns that year.
total, like just
Total.
total.
Total touchdowns were 18, and 6 of them were against Jacksonville. I just want to
Oh,
put 5 or
he
five,
threw
maybe it was
he threw
5
5 touchdowns against them. Well, he had like 5 total touchdowns against
in one
Jacksonville.
game. Yeah, he threw, it was either 5 or 6 against Jacksonville. So a third of his touchdown production was in one game, and he got to be a Pro Bowler. Now, I'm assuming that was because they made the playoffs and 2 Nickelodeon's Choice Awards probably has something to do with it. I could be wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I just do you think the Bear like do, I know Mitch Trubisky's not like the greatest quarterback of all time,
He's
but
not.
there's some dudes who just fit with teams, and don't you feel like he fit with the Bears? And if they're
Why?
not going
Because
to be
they never had good quarterbacks, and he just kind of fits in that mold.
he's like he's like the what the fuck was it? Excuse my language. What was his name that got him to the Super Bowl? I forgot. Rex Grossman.
Rex Grossman, yeah.
Was he better than Rex Grossman? Yeah, I think he was.
Oh man, that's
Rex Grossman just had a ridiculously great defense and run game.
and we'll see, and see that's the whole thing that always brings me back to the fact that we want to give these quarterbacks so much love is the fact that that defense was bonkers, and that was the year that Devin Hester had what like 5 or 7 touchdowns for returns as far as
Yeah,
punting.
he
He
was
was
pretty wild that season.
stupid, but we give the credit to the quarterbacks and Rex Grossman. God, man, he was the NFC version of Blake Bortles.
I like Blake Bortles though. I'm not like
Bortles.
I'm not saying like he was a great quarterback, but I feel like you've seen the video. He's like, "What would you be doing if you weren't playing football, smoking heaters, doing construction?"
Dude, he's no
Like as a
his
dude, I would love to hang out with that
I
guy.
love, yeah, no, as a quarterback, not so much, but as a
But
person who
that
I want to hang out with, Blake Bortles is on my list.
but you don't think if Jacksonville just had a quarterback that was just a slight step up from him, they should have been in the Super Bowl.
But see, that's my whole point is like he was still under his rookie contract and
Yeah,
they paid him after that. And that's always been my argument.
never gonna do that.
This dumb stuff of when the Rams paid Jared Goff and when the
Baltimore paid Joe Flacco.
well Flacco I think got paid beforehand.
He got paid after he had an all-time great postseason run. They won the Super Bowl, and then he
That
got paid.
one. Oh,
He,
okay, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
he
You're
got and then
right.
he got paid in Baltimore. What do you do if you're Baltimore? Like you got to pay him, right? Because he was this great in the postseason.
But see,
But we
that's my whole thing is
but we
no,
see you
you
don't.
don't. No,
If
you
I'm I
don't.
don't, because you see what he is in the right. He's very average, and you got a really good team around him. And then in the postseason, he had what 16 touchdowns, 1 interception, all-time great run in the playoffs. Like
But
Baltimore's like, we got to sign this guy. I'm like, but you
and
don't.
but see, that's my whole thing is I've always been so irritated by fan bases saying our quarterback got us here. We need to pay him. And that's the whole reason why I brought up myself with the New York Giants. No, don't pay Daniel Jones $40 million a year. You can get 16 touchdowns from goddamn anybody. You don't need to
Josh,
pay $40 million.
Josh Dobbs, Derek Carr,
You could have
Bevin, Baker
easily been
Mayfield.
half
I thought
half
the
the
whole
money.
offseason, I'm like, you let go. I thought Baker Mayfield would have been a great spot
Oh,
for
he'd
him
been
in
great
New
there.
York. And I'm glad he's doing
And
well in
for a third
Tampa.
of the salary, you're damn right.
Yeah.
But the Giants are stupid because what the Giants did were like, hey, we have a new head coach who finally fixed Daniel Jones, and all he did was got rid of the turnovers. Daniel Jones was not good; he just limited turnovers. But the fans are idiots because fans are idiots and
Yeah.
say, well, we can't lose Daniel Jones. What the are you talking about? Get out of here.
That's like saying the Browns couldn't lose Deshaun Kaiser.
That's a great point. You're actually not that far off. Now, we have gone so far on this weird tangent. I want to finish this up before we hand up. So we initially started this conversation with Bill Belichick. Will he ever eclipse? And God, I got about 20, 25 minutes, maybe. God, this has been a really, and I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time.
No, it's all good.
I know, like when we first started talking, we're like, "Oh, it's a 2-hour thing." It turned into a way longer thing. So Bill Belichick is 17 wins away from eclipsing Don Shula's all-time win record. And you had mentioned Mike Tomlin, which is God, I can't believe that was more than an hour and a half ago. Do you realize how many wins Mike Tomlin has?
Probably 205.
No, in relation to Don Shula, Don Shula has 300 and damn it, I think it's 374.
It wouldn't surprise me if Tomlin had less than 200, or just a shade above it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is so
because it feels like he's been coaching forever.
Well, and that's what makes all of this so impressive is that he's never had a losing season, right?
Never.
He's never had a losing season. So Don Shula has 347 wins. Bill Belichick is 330. Mike Tomlin has 174.
Wild.
He's
really?
like he's basically half away from Don Shula.
And he's been doing it for 20 years, it feels like.
But it feels like that. But that can't be right though.
That's crazy.
But he's also had a lot of 9-win seasons, but collectively he doesn't even have 200. So here's to put in perspective. These are, I want to do this because it's such a fun thing for us to do. Don Shula, number 1, 347. Belichick, 330. George Halas, 324. Andy Reid, 273. Tom Landry, 270. Curly Lambeau, 229. Paul Brown, 222. Chuck Noll, 209.
Where's Marty Schottenheimer?
Marty Schottenheimer is number 9 at 205, and Dan Reeves is 201.
Dan Reeves, okay.
And then Chuck Knox, 193. Bill Parcells, 183, who is regarded as one of the best coaches ever, has 183. Tom Coughlin, 182. Jeff Fisher is the number 14 overall winningest head coach at 178. Mike Shanahan at 178. and Mike Tomlin has 174 and has
That's
never had a
wild.
losing season. Isn't that stupid to you?
Jeff Fisher blows my mind because
He had so many 9-win seasons, it's bonkers. But what raises the fact is, so to get back to my question is, one, do you think, because I did some numbers on this. Bill Belichick is 17 wins away from being the winningest head coach ever. And you mentioned earlier that you think that he could get there, but not with New England. My thing is, could Andy Reid surpass him? Because Bill Belichick's 71 years old. Andy Reid's 65. So he's 6 years younger, and he is
and they're clipping off 12 wins a year over there in KC. So
so Bill Belichick is currently 57 wins ahead of Andy Reid.
if you're asking me, does Andy Reid have a better shot of winning more games than Bill Belichick has a shot of surpassing Mike Shula? With Patrick Mahomes, I wouldn't retire unless
The biggest thing for me is, can Andy Reid just stay healthy enough and not have enough cheeseburgers
the double cheeseburgers, dude.
Stay on the field?
Andy, like you need to chill out just for a little bit. Let's go on. Let's go on like a nice.
Or if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Where's Sean McVay at currently? Just out of curiosity, do you know by chance?
That's a really good question. I don't have.
I'm just curious. Jim Harbaugh has to be. He'll never get there, but I'm just like thinking, like, is there any coaches you're going to break 200? Because if Bill Parcells never broke 200, Mike Tomlin hasn't broke 200.
And that, like,
Marty Schottenheimer barely breaks 200.
Barely does it. And that's the whole thing, is like, when it comes to the way that we perceive sports as fans, it's like we think that this is super easy. It's like, dude, Mike Tomlin to our generation is like arguably one of the greatest head coaches. I know he only has one Super Bowl, but that's not the point of that. That dude, even though he loses, never has a losing season ever. And he's not even sniffing close to getting to Don Shula.
Andy Reid, like, if I'm taking up, it's so hard.
It's crazy.
Because I almost might take Andy Reid to win more games than Bill Belichick, getting past Don Shula. And that's only based because.
Wait, what was that? I'm sorry.
I could see Andy Reid at some point passing Bill Belichick in wins because he has Patrick Mahomes. But the guy's everyone thinks Patrick Mahomes is old. Like, shocker, dude,
he's like 27.
He's in his 5th year or something like that. It's something wild like that. He's got another 10 years to go at 12 wins.
He's been to 5 straight championship games, and he didn't start so he's now currently in his 7th year because he didn't play his first year really, and then
his 6th full year starting.
Yeah.
So they win 12 games for the next 10 years. It's 60 wins, 12, 24, 60 wins, and he's only 57 behind Belichick. Statistically, it's going to be hard to do, but that would mean Bill Belichick would have to get fired and never coach again. It's going to be hard to catch Don Shula.
If Andy Reid coaches for 8 more years, I think he gets it.
At what about 10 wins a season on average?
Yeah, pretty much, because I'll have to go back because I was trying to find because
I'd actually take that bet over Bill Belichick passing Don Shula.
Yeah, because Don Shula's at 347, Belichick's at 330. And based on the way that Belichick has ran that ship, like you said, unless he goes someplace else, that's going to be tough. Like, I feel like that's the whole reason why he's stuck around as well, is because he wanted to break Shula's record. And if he just
shouldn't have got rid of Tom.
That's weird, right?
Like,
but Andy Reid's 74 games away from Don Shula, and
10 wins a season for 8 more years is very feasible, dude. Like,
and again, he's 6 years younger than Belichick.
Well, in
it's
age,
not I don't want to do this because man, these guys. Okay, we like to say that NFL coaches spend 20 hours a day in
They
the
don't.
facility, and they don't. And thank you for saying that because they don't. But man, could you imagine? I don't. At the end of the day, and this has always been my argument, is that I have always thought, no, I need to stop that real quick. That's hyperbole. Um, I used to hold Bill Belichick on this pedestal because of how good they were for how long they were. And then Tom Brady leaves, then wins a championship his first year in Tampa. And I'm like, yeah, but the offensive line was good. The defense was good. It was like all you did was not have Jameis Winston throw 30 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do. Like
Yeah.
it's not that tough. But
But it is though, right?
but yeah, but that's what it boils down to essentially. And then I look at what Bill Belichick has been without him and that's the whole thing is like we only want to think that players can get better, but we never want to think that coaches can get better. So pre Brady, when he was in Cleveland, not good. Got Brady, excellent. Post Brady, you still aren't good. Did he
Post Tom, post Tom Brady, the
did
Buccaneers.
did he trick us? Did Bill Belichick trick us into thinking he's the greatest head coach ever when he's just mediocre? Did he do that to us?
I don't know if it's that. I think him and Tom, there's a synergy between the two that just generationally just worked out. But Tom ended it's looking like Tom was the reason by, and even now the Buccaneers, even after
If
post
you
Tom
did a
Brady,
pie chart,
say it again.
if you did a pie chart, success, Belichick, Brady, where would you put that Venn diagram? Where would you put that pie chart?
I have to give Tom Brady more credit, 60-40, because coaching matters.
Dude, you really limped into that. I would give
What's
him
up?
60-40.
But coaching matters. But at the end of the day, as a
Yeah.
player, you got to execute. You got to execute. And I can't see Jimmy Garoppolo or
Bailey
any other
Zappi,
like
Matt Castle. Well, Matt
Matt,
Castle, and that's where this whole thing started, though, is when Brady
Matt
went down
Castle, and he
and
won
Matt
11
Castle
games.
went 10-6. That's where everything started. Where you don't need Brady, Belichick's the dude,
He's a
and then
system quarter. It's a system, right?
and then exactly, and then but see that was the narrative, and then when Brady went to Tampa. Oh, well, he won a championship the first year there. And they started off slow because they were running the offense the way that Arians wanted to. And then Brady took over and goes, this isn't working. And they won
Yeah.
a championship. And then everybody wanted to change the narrative of, oh, no, it's Brady, not Belichick. And we have no clue.
Nobody does. Is Brady, does Brady have this many championships without Bill Belichick and vice versa?
No,
I
neither
just
one of them do.
think it's it's the perfect match that only comes around. I'm not talking just once in a generation, like this,
In a
what
lifetime.
Brady ever in the history of
It's
football.
crazy.
Like Pat Mahomes has a chance to win. I don't think he'll get what Brady has 6, 7 Super Bowls.
Brady has 7,
Okay.
and the Patriots have 6.
Okay, so do you think that Pat Mahomes can win 3 more in the next 10 years?
To get to 5?
Just to get to 5. Just to pass Terry Bradshaw and just to be right there with Tom Brady. Like,
I think it's possible.
it's possible. Absolutely, it's possible. But the NFL is so weird.
Well, the biggest reason why I think it's possible is because the salary cap continues to grow, and he restructured his contract this past off season.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So for Kansas City, actually, now that I think about it,
They could win.
no, I actually now that I kind of think it out, I don't think. So you're asking it. So
How
wait, so
how
you're asking
hard
me
5 like he's gonna win 5 more Super Bowls. not 5 more. He's going to win 3 more because he got 2.
He's
3
got two,
more over the next 10 years.
3 in the next 10.
Let's just say that his window, he got
Man,
10 more years. He's about 6 years in. He's got 10 more good years. 3
here's
in 10 years doesn't seem
the
so
re-
far off, right?
the only reason why I say, because my gut reaction was, oh yeah, he can absolutely do this.
Because I think it's more impossible to think that to get to where Tom Brady's at, he would have to win 5 in the next 5 years
Well,
to get to
right, but
7.
the reason why, like, so my gut reaction was yes, absolutely. But now that I think about it, the reason why I say no is because the AFC is pretty stacked right now with quarterbacks, and two, Travis Kelsey is going to be done in like 2 years, and their wide receiving core has not. Look, he's proven that he can win without Tyreek
Sky
Hill.
Moore's not lighting up
I mean,
the scoreboard,
yeah,
right? That Rice kid though is pretty decent.
if they can find a guy like a Tyreek Hill, that's the whole thing, is like we say, well, why don't you just go find another one?
You
That's
can't.
you
You
can't,
can't.
you can't just find one. And Travis Kelsey again is one of one, and he's going to be done in the next year or two. So if you asked me this question 4 years ago, based on what we saw from the first version of Travis Kelsey, I would say, or I'm sorry, Patrick Mahomes, I would say, yeah, I think he could probably win 5 in the next 10 years. But now that we get to see what they're still going to be good because they have Patrick Mahomes, but
Yeah.
without having Travis Kelsey in the next 2 years, unless they get a number one wide receiver, he doesn't even have to be Tyreek Hill as far as speed is concerned. As long as they get a number one wide receiver, maybe. But I have a really hard time thinking that they can replicate this type of success, because Travis Kelsey is not going to be walking through that door in 730 days.
You think he's just done in 2 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, Gronk, what's weird is that Gronk and him are the same age.
You don't think he has like the longevity of like a Tony Gonzalez or an Antonio Gates, where he plays at like a super high? Again, here we are with tight end talk.
No,
But like,
I know, and I love it too. But it was but the thing is, with the speed of the NFL right now is just so absurd.
yeah,
And but he's also not beating people necessarily with speed. He's beating people with his mind. Like he is the master of finding a zone.
it's footwork.
It's his footwork, and it's him just finding the soft spot and always being able
He'll
to
hit
find
you.
it.
He'll hit you 5 yards up the field and just move real quick, grab it, and he's going to get you another 10 yards. Like his ability just to turn something like a small, just like a 5 yard pass into something bigger.
Into
It,
12 or 17.
it's
Like,
crazy. But again, like the longevity of that, how long does that last? Because there's Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates. There's not a lot of guys who play that long who put up those kind of stats.
yeah.
But
Well, and
I don't
go
think he'll
ahead, sorry.
I don't think he'll get to 7. But if you're telling me that the Chiefs can win 3 more in 10 years, much like the Spurs kind of spread them out when they were
Yeah, they got five with
dynasty,
Duncan and
but
Robinson.
just kind of just like over the
Yeah.
course of time, I could see him getting to 5. But even that's a stretch. 5 Super Bowl wins is tough, dude. And like,
But see, this has always been my argument, is that like Brady and Jordan have ruined sports because
right,
you are taking the outlier and you're making like, well, why can't everybody just do it? So
exactly,
If Patrick Mahomes wins one more Super Bowl and he only gets 3,
he's a
he's
bum
gonna
compared to
be considered a bum. And like, but the way that these things work is the further we get removed, like Jim Kelly, and I love him. That's the whole reason why I became a Bills fan. People just absolutely drag this dude through the mud for years. And then you realize, oh, you went to 4 straight Super Bowls? That's really tough. Oh, you mean you went into a gauntlet, which was the NFC East minus just the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Dallas Cowboys were a juggernaut for 3 or 4 years? our bad. You know what? That was pretty impressive. And
Very impressive.
but the thing is, like, it's not until we have time to really reflect on those achievements can we say
Yeah.
that that was impressive. And that's going to be the same thing with Patrick Mahomes is the dude has gone to 5 straight AFC championships, gone to 3 Super Bowls, and has won 2.
Could
And
have won.
people
Could have
and
won
he
the
could have
third one
won
if he
3.
had an offensive line. And
Exactly.
the guy
That
ran
dude,
around and kept his team in the game
that
and just ran around trying to make plays.
Patrick Mahomes made 4 of the most absurd incompletions I've ever seen in my entire
Uh-huh.
life.
Uh-huh.
And that's the thing though is if Mahomes doesn't get to Brady, it's going to be you were good, but no, 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 no. It doesn't have to be that way. But revision is always history, and it always comes back to the fact of once we're removed from the overall, the instantaneous outcome. Again, I always go back to the Buffalo Bills because in the moment it was laugh, 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 and then we go, man, that was pretty impressive that the Bills went to 4 straight. You lost 4 of them, but you went there.
To get to
But we
4 is
like, but we
hard.
like, yeah, we don't like the underdogs in the moment. We want to like the underdogs after the fact, and we can reflect and say, well, that was a cool story. And that's gonna probably be what Patrick Mahomes is and Andy Reid for furthermore, to just kind of put this all together of even if they don't win 6 championships together, what they've done in this span is one of the most impressive runs that we've ever seen in NFL
And if
history.
they if they win or even get to the Super Bowl again this year, just like can you
Like that
is
dynasty
there
is
any
like
is there any quarterback in the first 6 years from the time they became a starter to go to so he's got 2 Super Bowl wins, he's been to 3, he's been to 5 AFC champ. So they do it again this year. Say he wins, that's 3 in 6 years. That's 6 straight AFC championship games. That's
and
4
three
Super Bowls in 6 years. And you win 3 of them and you get beat by Tom Brady in the other one.
you get beat by Brady in the AFC championship game.
Yeah, excuse me.
And
Yeah.
you get beat, yeah, and then
And
it,
I just wish more people would appreciate like it's and we'll get off here soon. It's the LeBron James thing. It's like he's been around for so long and people just don't appreciate how great this dude is from the time he stepped onto the court because he doesn't have 6 championships. But he went to 10
or
straight
it's not
finals.
the other thing too, it's not even just the fact that he doesn't have 6, it's the fact that he's not undefeated. But what's
Uh,
so weird is like everybody wants to pick and choose, right? Like Jerry West is the logo, but has like a
One
less
title.
than, he has a less than 20% win percentage in the finals. Some people say it's Bill Russell. And it's like, okay, well, you weren't playing as you can pick and choose where you want to do this. LeBron James to me, and look, I'm not going to call him the greatest player ever because I don't think that Michael Jordan's the best player because I just don't do that kind of dumb. I don't do top 5s, top 10s, and anything in
They're the
between.
best players of their generation.
The only I would one, yes, I
Of their
would
specific generation. And I think each generation you can go like Bill Russell was great in his generation. Then you had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, awesome, great, the
Larry
best player of his.
Bird or Magic
And then you have Michael, and
or
then
Hakeem
and
and
then
Michael,
in between Michael and LeBron, there's Kobe. Like it,
Allen Iverson to some people.
it's like we sit. Yeah, it's everyone wants to like. It is the Michael Jordan thing, and we're spoiled by that because there's a. It's not so much the new generation, but the old generation sits here and is like Michael Jordan's the greatest because he won 6 titles and he never lost in a finals. But
But
we
they
don't
forget all the failures beforehand.
exactly. We don't. But with LeBron James, it's like, well, he lost to Dallas. He's only won
Now
4 and
that
6 in
is
the
the
final.
biggest indictment.
That that's his that's his
I will give fans that. The
that's
Dallas
his only
one,
asterisk, in my
that is
opinion.
the indictment of his career. But if that's the only one that you have, all right.
And because of that, then he went on LeBron in Miami after that first season. Those next 3 seasons,
It was bonkers.
Insane. It's Shaq in the early 2000s when he had that 3-year stretch, probably the most dominating stretch any player's ever had, where the dude can drop 40 in a game, 20 rebounds, 5 blocks, and he's running the ball up the court as a point guard on a fast break. Like it, you like people
He
are
was
so
Charles.
focused.
It was basically like older, or he was younger, better, more athletic Charles Barkley when right before Charles went to Houston.
Yeah, yeah, in people like I don't know if there's a greater stretch of 3-year basketball than in my lifetime that I've seen than Shaq played with the Lakers and then LeBron with Miami, which bled over to
That's
Cleveland. But that 3 years after he lost to Dallas,
he was,
absolutely,
dude. He was so infuriating.
it was insane. It was just like it's 27 a night. He's doing whatever he wants on the
He was
court.
doing 20. His entire career is essentially 28, 8-8
Yeah. If
every
you look,
single year.
it's crazy. Like I LeBron's my favorite basketball player of all time because, like I said, I'm a Cavs fan. But even if he wasn't, I watched enough Jordan to know how good Jordan was. But I've watched enough of LeBron James to know he's equally as good, but just his in a different way. Like
Yeah, you
his
can be
game
just
is
as good, but be different.
his
Like
game's
Charles Barkley is my favorite player of all time.
great player. I don't think people understand how
He's my
good Charles
favorite.
Barkley
I
was.
know he's not the best, but he's my favorite.
I don't think people understand how great Charles Barkley was at basketball. The
Well, and
dude,
this always goes back to the fact of when Barkley was playing, he was getting ridiculed of, oh, you can't win the big one. Jordan is always going to be blah, blah, blah. But now that we've grown further and we've seen him on television and we see how good he is at television, your perspective is skewed based on what you want to believe and what you want to think. And it's the same thing right now with Charles Barkley is he used to be viewed as a failure. And now he's the lovable loser, but also, oh yeah, now we get to go back and see that dude was really good, but ran into those guys. It's
LeBron
like
was really good, ran into Golden State. Outside of Dallas, the Cavs or
it
any
is
team he was on were the underdogs in every series. Like
exactly.
it's it, it's perspective, it's optics, it's looking at everything in the total spectrum and kind of understanding it. Whereas people just want to look at it as like he lost. LeBron lost. No, his team lost when they lost to the Spurs in 2005. I think it was 2005. And he's like, why didn't he beat the
Yeah,
Spurs?
05 or 06. Yeah, one of the two, I
Like, why
think.
didn't he beat the Spurs? I'm like, the Spurs had Manu Ginobili in his prime. Tony Parker was coming in his prime. Tim
Tim
Duncan. They
Duncan was only
had
6 years into his career. Yeah.
the fact that he beat Detroit, who was an excellent team, to get to the finals at 23 years old.
Well, see, and that's the whole thing is like they want to go ahead and discredit LeBron for losing then, but don't want to give Detroit all their flowers for beating the Lakers.
Oh,
I
I could go 30 minutes on the Lakers. We could discuss it. I when the
no, but
Lakers beat
yeah,
when
and
the when the
I'm
Pistons
sure
beat
you
the
could.
Lakers, when the Pistons beat the Lakers, and everyone's like, "There's no way the Pistons beat the Lakers in the finals." Is that what you're talking about when the Pistons routed the Lakers in 5 games?
Mhm.
Yeah, I picked Detroit. I watch basketball now, but I used to watch a lot of it, and I would tell people, "I go, Detroit's going to beat the Lakers," and they're like, "There's no way." I'm like, "Do you watch basketball?" Because fundamentally, the Lakers' big names flawed, old. There's Kobe, but they have a lot of old dudes. But then you have a guy named Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton. You have a bunch of Rasheed, like you have a bunch of really good basketball
Rasheed
players.
Wallace wasn't even like he was
Not
like
even,
the whole thing about Rasheed was like he was old, but wasn't that old because that team that's 20 years ago.
and they were so good. I'm like, they're gonna lock the Lakers down.
Ryan Wallace.
They're gonna win in 5 or 6 games. And I remember I worked with a guy at Blockbuster. I was really young, and I go, I'll bet you
That's
$100.
how long this segment is. Blockbuster was a reference.
I worked there and at Hot Topic, so aging
Oh,
myself.
holy hell. We have a hot
Yeah.
topic still up here though.
Yeah, it's still popular. I was in a Hot Topic the other day. and I'm like, oh, it's different. It's just but like like I'm just like with Detroit, like the better team will usually always win when it comes down to the two teams in a championship game or a finals. Like I never believed in that Lakers team. They were the best team in the West, but once they actually had to face a team in a 7-game series, an actual team, a team that moved the ball, worked together, played defense, helped defense as well. They weren't bigger than the Lakers. They weren't faster than the Lakers. They were younger than the Lakers. But like the things that they did as a cohesive unit, like I watched them the whole year. I'm like, there's no way the Lakers are going to beat these guys. And you fall in love with big names and what they did
Yeah,
in the
second,
past.
second Kobe will do that to you.
I and that was kind of the end of that Lakers era, and then they went and got rid of Shaq and um but like
Well, and that's the thing that's always kind of irritated me when because I tell people it's like Kobe wasn't as great as you guys want to make him out to be, and I always I catch so much for that because when he was playing, it was always he's a ball hog, he's diet MJ, he's not that
Diet
good.
MJ, yeah.
And next thing, and it's always the way that he and his daughter pass. And they're using that to elevate him to a certain level. And like 2K is doing it to try to like
Make money.
it's
Nike has a whole shoe coming
it's
out in commemoration of his death. Like, what do you guys? And we could do probably another whole hour on this. What I'll say
we
is
yeah,
next time
probably.
we do this, and maybe next weekend, we should definitely talk about Kobe Bryant. And
I think that's going to be good because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to agree with us. Well, no, there are going to be some people who agree with us and a lot of people who won't. But I've always been the proponent of when he was playing, he wasn't that good and he only padded stats. And I've always said his last game against Utah is one of the most overrated games ever because because I actually watched that game.
I watched it over
Utah was not playing defense at all. They
it,
let him get his 60.
he got his 60. I watched that game over when Golden State broke the record for most wins. Because to me, I thought it was a bigger deal watching Kobe's last game, but they were letting
Yeah.
him drive to the hoop. He
Dude,
scored 60 points on 42 shots.
yeah, they let him get his shots and they let him get easy shots too. It was Kobe Bryant to me, and I always hate saying this. It does. I don't like doing it, but because I'm in this space, I feel like I have to be this person is you as the the person who consumes this product as an NBA fan, you're telling me Kobe's diet Michael Jordan, that he's not that good. And then the only reason why you are trying to throw it back in my face is the fact that he and his daughter and other people died in a tragic accident, which I don't wish on
Of
anybody.
course not.
But what we're doing is putting him on the pedestal based solely upon that when your narrative of him was completely different while he was playing. That is
Everyone, I agree.
that is my biggest issue with everything is you are taking a tragedy and trying to make yourself feel better based on it to build up his brand and how loyal you are to him when you never felt that way. There are some people who do, and I'm not trying to discredit them, the Lakers fans, Kobe's fans, their family. I am not trying to do that, but as
No, I understand.
I know that you know what I'm talking about, but anybody else probably is going to feel that way. You got to understand his story was not this story until his story ended, which is like the worst way to put it.
He went
But
from a
I don't,
top
but I
15 or
don't
20.
think I'm incorrect on that.
He went from a top 15 to 20 player to the
To a
best
top
player
four.
to a top 5 or the best player in Lakers franchise history. I'm like, dude, he's not. No,
He
that's not
hasn't
how
made
this.
it. Yeah,
That's not how this works.
when he
It's not.
retired, you thought of him one way, and the fact that he died, you put him in like it's Yeah, and
And
again,
it's
I feel bad saying it because like it feels like what I'm trying to do is stomp on the grave of somebody,
of
which
course
is
no, you
not what
no.
I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to do that. I know it's going to come across to some people that way, but that's not what I'm trying to accomplish. It's more of just why don't you just take inventory of yourself and see what you saw him as beforehand and what you see him as now, and what's the only thing that changed? To me, it's almost the same way as, and again, these are two completely different things. And I really need people to understand this is like when when you play the national championship game in college football, and then you play week one, why does everything change so much? There's no games that have been played. Same thing with the draft. No games have been played. Why is everything moving so much? Now that I'm older, I kind of understand
Yeah.
from the draft perspective. It's like, okay, well, now the coaches and scouting, they have more time to actually look through the other games. But overall, you're not playing anything different. You haven't played any games. What you're looking at is now I have time to reflect. And now you want to make your own story based off what you see as opposed to what actually happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a revisionist history with Kobe Bryant and a lot of his fans that see him as this perfect player,
And
and
they
they
forget
not.
about all the bad stuff. And
And
which
if you bring that up, you're an asshole because he's passed away. It's like no, no, I bring I the uh, qu- quitting on his team, threatening to want to get
nobody ever
traded.
brings that up. Nobody ever brings that up.
These are things that happened. He quit on his team to prove a point.
He also
In a game they could have won and they could have moved on. They could have beat the Suns in that game. And he's
on
just like, you
top
know what?
on top
Smush,
of
go ahead.
on top of that, yes, the Lakers had some really bad teams towards the end of his career, but
He took the bag.
but also he wanted to make the money. If he was supposed to be all about winning, he would not be taking on those stupid contracts where we're really it's like it's Sacra, it's Jordan Clarkson initially, it's
Luau Dang.
Luau Dang, yeah, way
He
after the
just
fact.
came off the books last year, probably,
Yeah, actually, I think
which
you're
is
right. It was either last
crazy.
or the year before, and he just came off their books. And the thing is, like, nobody ever wants to talk about those things with Kobe now. They want to talk about it when he was alive. And again, I feel like such an asshole saying this in this way, but I'm tired of people building him up to be something that he wasn't. And he wasn't the greatest teammate. Yeah, he got 5 championships, but there are a lot of caveats that go with that, a la the Sacramento Kings, a la you got Shaquille O'Neal, a la there is some calls that went your way. But the thing that happens, mama mentality when he tore his Achilles and he made a free throw and walked out. You have isolated moments and then the
Uh-huh.
isolated death, and you couple those things together, and he ends up being, like you said, Diet Michael Jordan, a top 20, top 25-ish type player to, well, how can you leave him out of your top four or top five?
I'd
And
say
then it's like, and now you become
I'd have Kobe if I had to put him in the top 15. I don't think that's a slight, but I have to go back and look at it. And people are like, how just top 15? I'm like, but if I'm, it's like when people get upset about
how is that,
someone saying
yeah, how is that a slander?
when people are like,
Because
oh, LeBron James, you only have him ranked number two. I'm like, yeah, but I have Michael Jordan ahead of him. What's so bad about being the second best player of all time in this game?
ever. And I'm so glad that you said that because that is where we live, like the space that we occupy as sports fans, not you and me, but collectively. We're like, if you're not the best, you're trash. And it's like that is not at all how this works.
Just because I
I don't understand it.
just because I have a couple guys like I think Magic Johnson is the greatest Laker of all time. I think Shaq. If I had to start a team and I had to pick between Shaq and Kobe back then, would you not take Shaq because of what had done in Orlando and the way that he played basketball? Like I don't even I don't
Prime Shaq was a problem. especially for them.
Kobe,
But that's the whole thing is like right now, Prime Shaq would get like 20, 25 minutes a game.
I think Prime Shaq would be. I Prime Shaq would have worked on his 3-point shooting, but you're right. As his game constituted, there's no way any team lets that guy run the ball up the court as a point guard and to
Yeah.
run a fast break. There's no way that. But Shaq, if you
Lakers
just,
Shaq is absolutely not doing that.
I don't. If I hope there's a day where we get a guy who's as talented as Shaq was, who can dominate down low, where we're just like, you know what, dude, you don't need to go sit at the 3-point line. Let's just give you the ball every time we go
Well,
down the court.
the thing is that Giannis could have been that person, but now he's wanting
Now he's
so
going to the
much.
3-point line.
He wants to adapt to this, and because he was like, his body is basically David Robinson.
Yeah,
Like it's stupid. Like those two guys are two of the most cut players I've ever seen in my entire life.
they have. I have more fat on my wrist than they have on their whole body, and
Yeah,
there's not a lot of fat here. You know what I mean? Like,
you
it's just,
we don't have to do that.
it's just crazy because,
I
like,
can truffle shuffle if you want to, but I'd prefer not to.
no, right
Thank-
down here, I got
thank-
a nice little belly, but it's but Giannis for 2 years was statistically the most one of the compared to Shaq, he was the most dominating player down low. And then all of a sudden, the last year and a half, it's like, hey, let's go out to the three
Well,
point line and try to shoot
he's
threes.
he's trying to mold his game to what the NBA has moved to.
Just be who
With
you are, because it's successful. You won a championship playing the way that you were playing, and now
yeah,
if you're
him
not,
shooting threes isn't winning you chips. Him playing the way he used to did.
yeah, I
But he
agree.
also like when he first got in the league, like he was scrawny.
He looked like
And
Kevin Durant does now.
yeah, well,
Like,
Kevin Durant for his entire life, basically.
yeah, he just he's like, I bench press a max to 75. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it was the bar, and like a 15 on each side.
I'm like, dog, like, okay, you just proved like you don't need to. All right, Chet Holmgren, like, come on.
Yeah.
But I'm
But
looking forward, real quick. I'm looking forward to watching Chet Holmgren and Wembayama, the Thin
that's
Towers,
gonna be
battle it
fun.
out for
The
the next
Thin
10 years.
Towers.
The
Oh
Thin
my
Towers
god.
battle it out for the next.
That's so good.
They're gonna be
That's so
chasing.
good.
They're gonna chase each other around the perimeter. They're never gonna bang down low. They're just gonna chase each other around the perimeter while they're all shooting fucking wild threes. There will be no post game. It's just the Thin Towers just running after each other, just trying to hit threes. That's where the NBA game's at. And but like I said, I'm okay with where the game's at. I would love to see like I would love to see Shaq in that 3-year period come to the NBA now, and he would absolutely, if a coach let him, absolutely dominate a game. He could get 45 points a game just
Yeah.
sitting in the post, doing nothing. And and we have guys shooting off 40-foot threes. And it's like you do know like you can get 2 points by
Well,
going inside the paint and
and that's what's so weird to me too is like because we talked about it earlier, like I understand the metrics and
yeah,
the numerology behind three is worth more than two in per possession if you can shoot it at a lesser percentage and still make more, like you can accumulate more points.
yeah,
But by the same token, like if I can find a dude who is like not prime Shaq, because prime Shaq could still move.
yeah,
If I can get Lakers Shaq, who is 7 foot, 300 pounds, but has court vision. If you shoot 10 for 15 from the field, that's 20. You're going to get hacked a few times. Add a couple free throws, that's 26. And as long as I don't need you to shoot threes, just be a presence down low. Give me some offensive boards like that. This is the thing about sports is it always kind of it always maneuvers, right? And that's the one thing I've always said about Belichick is when other teams zig, he zags. And I feel like the NBA is going to so much of a 3-point thing where they're going to be so small and frail, where there's going to be a head coach who goes, Give me one guy down low who you can't stop.
Look at what the Lakers did last year. They didn't shoot a lot of threes. A lot of their productivity to get to the Western Conference Finals, they did in the paint and with perimeter shooting. The Suns do the same thing, or at least they used to. So there's teams who are like, you know what? I don't have the guys who can shoot threes, but I have guys who can hit mid-range buckets. I would rather get points than have dudes just chuck up 3-point shots because that's the way they think that they should win. The Houston Rockets with James Harden against Golden State in the Western Conference Finals Game
When they
7.
missed like 43s in a row.
You don't think you could have gotten some points to settle yourself down a little bit by letting CP3 facilitate and get just some easy buckets?
Yep.
But instead, you're sitting back here with Trevor Ariza and CP3 and Eric
Eric
Gordon chucking up,
Gordon. Yep.
and they could have won that game. So, like, it upsets me, and especially on the college level when I see these college kids are just shooting threes. I'm like, you guys aren't playing fundamental basketball. Like, 99.9% of you guys can't shoot the three ball at a 40% rate or a 30% clip. Go get your points. Basketball can be played in a different way. It's great for teams who have great shooters from out there, but most teams don't.
The
So,
the way that I've always kind of well, not always. I don't want to be that person, but when I look at things from the analytics, sounds like a very pretentious way of saying it, but when I see basketball at the NBA level, it's like offensively, you guys can all get whatever you want to.
yeah,
For lack of a better term, like some people are obviously better than others, but offensively, everybody's so talented. I'd rather, and I've always when I this is gonna sound stupid because people say like, well, when I play Madden or I play 2K, but what I like to do is run my guys really tough. I want to get the best out of you initially. And I don't mind like kind of staggering my bench and letting you come off. Maybe you're coming off a little bit earlier, but there's TV breaks, there's things like give me your best,
yeah.
especially defensively, because you can get your own buckets. We can execute the offense whenever we want to. I want you fresh for the other end because that's where the real
Winning is
effort is
done.
is
Yeah.
is real needed
No, I agree. I I we could talk about
forever. Yeah,
defense in
and
the
being honest with
NBA.
you, yeah, I know that
Just
I can tell right now because your background's fading like into dark because I know it's like 8:30 there.
I don't
Things
even
are
know.
going on, but
I got. I think my lady's home too, but I don't know if I stay in here long enough, she'll just leave me alone.
I will tell you something real quick. If she's home, you're not being left alone. That is not how my wife just texted me 10 minutes ago. You're never alone, Matt.
Even in my office,
Yeah. We don't get that.
I'm
Yeah.
looking for cameras. I'm like, where does she hide the cameras at? She knows. No, she's super respectful of when I want to do this, but I don't think she thought I'd be on here for 3.5 hours today. So
Yeah, I also feel bad too because that wasn't our intention. It was
no,
so
but
funny because I told you like we'll carve out an hour and you're like yeah I'll carve out 2 hours on my end just in case. But then my internet cut out and then we had to reestablish it like our what we're talking about. And it's
I feel like you got a lot of good stuff you can cut and edit and put into an episode. I really like the stuff we talked about with Trevor Bauer and like with Dylan Brooks specifically about a player who is a really good player who tries to be someone they're not personality wise and like trying to figure out like who people are on and off the court and then also like just not investing the time into I don't know how do I say it is like worshiping athletes for the
yeah
people you may think they are versus the people that they actually are and learning to like limitate I love this guy on the field. I love the way he plays basketball,
yeah
but I can separate that from who he is as a
exactly
person.
it's separating the art from the artist
Yeah, absolutely.
if
So
you
I
can
felt
do it.
like there's been a lot of good content on here. I've had a really good time. Um, but we should probably
I'm so bad at directing traffic when it comes to these things because like
No,
like
we
you
get
said,
sidetracked. I think we're both kind of the same, and like we'll be thinking of something, and then like I'm like, well, what about that? And then like
well,
it'll
that's
just
the whole
spin
thing. Like
off.
I'm like, hey, we're doing a podcast episode, and then next thing I know, I'm just talking to my friend, and next thing I know, it's 5 hours of just Neanderthal, just us being goofy shenanigans, and next thing you know, like I've wasted your afternoon, and
Nah, dude, I've had a good time, and I appreciate you having me on. Maybe we could do this again next week. Um, just let me know. I'm always free on the weekends, for the most part, other than baseball. But if next week I'm free, hit me up. I'd love to do this again.
that sounds good. And I swear to God, I will be much better as far as
I'm gonna
my.
carve out 3 hours next week. I'm gonna set 3 hours aside just in case. This
All
week it
right, well,
was two.
if you give me three, I'm hijacking seven.
Okay.
Just
I was like, babe, she's gonna be like, what are you doing all day? I'm like, we're doing a 24-hour podcast marathon, and we're
yo,
talking about.
that's what we need to do. I need to send kiddo to my parents' house, have a sleepover, and I need like, hey, wifey, you go hang out with your friends, and then we can do like a 24-hour podcast marathon from
We're
like
doing three
Saturday.
hours on. We're doing 3 hours on tight ends. Okay, you just go hang out with your friend.
It's it's a dumb sports thing you wouldn't understand because we're kind of ridiculous when it comes to that.
She's like, I don't. What's the tight end? It's like, don't worry about that. It's a football
That's
position, and it's an important one. Okay, we're gonna talk about.
I heard it once in a Taylor Swift song, so I'm pretty sure I'm an expert on it.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. I've had a good time, man. But I should
Yeah,
probably get off here. And
I always love it. Yeah, you as well, man. I always love having you on. Anyway, that was Mat Zebrowski, us just being stupid for the last 4.5 hours or so. Thank you so much for your time, my man. We will be on here next Saturday, maybe next Sunday.
I'll
See
holler
what's
at you.
going
Yeah,
on. Sounds
like
good,
I
my
said,
man.
I'll carve out 3 hours.
Hey, we gonna need 7, dog.
Hey,
You guys know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed. Matt
I was gonna say
Zebrowski,
that. I was gonna say that to
tell,
you. You
tell
stay
Sugar,
blessed, bro.
tell Sugar I love her.
I'm gonna go give her a hug right now. I'll let her know.
Oh, you're a good man.
I appreciate you, brother.
You too, bud.
Have a good one, man.
You too, bud. Thanks.